Hello, I'm really excited to be back today with John. This is part 2 of the lessons that we are doing, and I've been looking forward to this for a week. So, welcome back, John.
Thank you so much, Solveig.
Yes,
I did some work on that, yes. So I'm looking forward to it as well, almost the entire week. So maybe I can start with briefly mentioning my last week and what
yes,
briefly happened in my life. And then I will ask you, of course, about
yes,
your
yes.
week, what you've been up to, and so on. So, first of all, my ego was just crushed. My 6-year-old son, Oscar, crushes me in the game called Uno. You know, the card game?
Yes, yes, yes.
You know the game? Like, I give my best. He crushes me. I cannot win a single game almost, like landslide, 5-0 today. And what's more humiliating? Do you know what? He
What?
sometimes can't even hide his hand. I can sometimes see his cards and doesn't matter. I
Wow.
still lose. So definitely if there's like Uno coach out there in the world, I should maybe
Yes.
get some lessons, or watch some YouTube videos. I know. I feel totally down today.
S-
And yeah, so
I
that
have a
was the first
question.
crutch. Yeah.
I have a question. Is
Yes.
Oscar just that good, or are you really bad, or is it a
I think
combination?
I'm also a terrible Ono player, but there's some skill, right? It's not like purely luck game after all. I mean, there's some strategies going on there, yeah? The order of things and, which order you put the cards and change and everything. Like, there's some skill
Yeah,
inside,
and I
but I'm quite
think
terrible.
I I have to ask, is your empathy getting in the way? Because I feel like to win at Juno,
Yeah.
you have to be a bit ruthless and
Yeah. No, but I
try
mean,
to destroy
definitely,
things
definitely.
for
He
your
always
opponent.
he always starts first, for example, because he's very eager. I always let him start the game first. It
Hmm.
cannot be like a huge advantage after all, right? Like it cannot explain he keeps crushing me. Every single match I lose. Like but he's very into it, of course. He's also following some strategies and he's getting better. Like you can definitely see now those patterns in children that is just like a sponge. Like he gets better every single day.
Yeah, I
Like
wish my brain was like that still.
yeah, so admirable. Like he's still playing his own game of chess when I ask him to play some games, he's very like creative, he just creates his own rules and so on. And but with Uno, he definitely found his real game and he keeps asking me to play game after game. And this was my last week, just getting crushed by Oscar and definitely feeling as
Is
adult improvers, like the struggle.
it's probably even more fun for him when he gets to beat you every single time.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's why he doesn't play chess with me because he knows that I'm quite good. Like he also
Yes.
I think avoids that. He just creates his own rules. Like it's just
Yes.
like like no mercy, no mercy. Yeah. So I need to watch some YouTube videos. That's my resolution for next week. And what also happened last week was I talked to Jacob Augard, Grandmaster.
Mm.
You also met him, of course. You also streamed with him at some point. That was really the highlight of my last week. I mean, I did this 3-hour episode with him, and yeah, what was so special about the episode was that he opened himself up to look at my positions, thinking out
Mhm.
loud, being vulnerable basically in the
Mhm.
podcast. Because the grandmaster is like this one of the biggest coaches in the world, actually.
Mm.
Like he
Mm.
was just looking through my pulse that I was giving him, really, really giving his best to the positions and just thinking out loud. And I think this was very brave. I mean, in hindsight, I think this is something that is really appreciated. And I was really happy that he opened himself up like that. So
Yeah.
that was quite beautiful to watch. So that's also why I think I love this because you also open yourself to public, right? Like showing your games, analyzing your games and mistakes and so on. Also me, maybe I will do some mistakes when I'm coaching. I will say something stupid perhaps, but I'm still, opening myself up to this public, let's say, podium and yeah, just be vulnerable in this platform. I think there's something beautiful also when it comes
Yeah,
to it.
and I also think we shouldn't be so afraid of saying stupid things or making mistakes because I think it just makes you more relatable. And even when in my day job, when we do streams sometimes to show how things works in the engineering software, and you have this idea that you have to have this perfect presentation, not do any mistakes, but then a mistake happened. But the feedback from my students is that they're just happy to see that we can make mistakes as well, that it's not
Right,
only them. So,
right.
because everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. This was so relatable. My three last episodes were also the same. Nate Solon, evaluate together positions. Andras thought we guessed the move of a very difficult Fischer Spassky game, and our ego was crushed, yeah, because they were much better than us. But we were still, doing our best to think out loud and just laying down our thoughts to the students, basically.
Yeah.
And that actually also, even like education psychology wise, that's one of the best ways to improve for beginners. When you listen to a strong player, thinking out loud, like live, like giving their feedback and so on, it's just beautiful way to improve as well. So yeah, this was my week, overall. I think it was a beautiful week overall, and I'm really looking forward to the station as well. How about you, Solveig? I mean, you were also
Yeah.
busy. You started my course. Like, tell us more about that, right? My opponent's last move course.
Yeah. So my my week, like after our stream, my week started off. I went back to prison.
Yeah, yeah, of
So
course. Much more exciting week that way.
so
Yes.
I was in prison earlier, just to do some volunteer work and teach some chess. And I returned this week because Jakob, who visited your podcast, he actually donated a huge chunk of books to the prison library, so I got to bring those and play. Yeah, we played Blitz chess then, but that was the training I got that day. But they are pretty strong. They are like better than me, 2000 rated. And I actually managed to put some pressure on some of them before eventually losing. But
Yeah.
they have so much practical training and they're so fast. It's just like incredibly difficult. But that was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And then, I've been studying your course, of course.
Yes.
So I'm midway into the third chapter, and I'm getting some light bulb moments and also noticing some commonalities with things that I struggle with.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that. I've also been doing some just regular puzzles. I did one classical game, and then I also did some rapid games. So
Yes.
that was pretty much my week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm really
Well,
excited to look.
yes. You sent me three games. I mean, overall, because one classical, two rapid games. That's the goal for today. We will have a look at all three. Just like
Yeah.
last week, we will try to find some common grounds and find those
Yes.
teachable moments to, let's say, feed forward and to get some lessons. And of course, I will start with a couple of positions from last week. Why? Because that's already good space repetition. That's
Yes.
also what I usually do. Yeah, start a new lesson. Always show some positions from last time. If it's only 1 week, that's even better, of course. Just to see, whether learning took place. Sometimes you don't remember, by the way, so don't be too harsh on yourself if you fail the same task
Mm-hmm.
as well. But just to repeat, consolidate knowledge, I think that's a very smart idea
Yeah,
to start with
I
some reps.
really like that a whole lot, and I'm even noticing sometimes when I do the review function in your Chessable course that some of the positions I did get wrong, I get them wrong the second time as well.
Yeah,
So then I think the repetition is good just to ingrain it more. Unfortunately, I don't have a sponge brain like Oscar.
like Oscar. No, no, no,
Yeah.
none of us do. Yes. That's why it might need more reps for adults. It might need more deliberate practice, but I think it's quite smart. So if I, for example, start with this position to you, like choose between these two options, knight takes or b takes in this position,
Do you have a
what would
position
you
up
say?
now? Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
Can you see my screen
there
on
it got.
chess.com?
Yes,
Or yeah,
yes,
chess.com classroom, right?
yes, I got it now.
Yes. The question is this: should we take back with the knight or with the pawn in this position? Two choice task.
Pawn.
Why is that?
It's not because we want to play d5, like I said the last time, but it is to reinforce the d5 square
Exactly.
and
You
not
even
give the
remembered
opponent
how you
an
failed last week.
outpost.
That was beautiful. You even remember how you failed because your first initial thought was that, yeah, we take because we want to play d5.
Yes,
Not really, right? Because that knight is already dominated by the pawn on c6.
yes,
So that knight is not feeling happy. And again, happy pieces, sad pieces, that's quite important to breed also, like to develop at this level.
yes,
Like when you see a piece, is it happy or bad? Yes. Generally, pawns can dominate the knights like that in this distance. It's also called Karpov distance, by the way. This, 3 square distance between the knight and the pawn can be a bishop as well. We talk about domination distance. So it's quite good to have our pawn here. And yeah, we just take it from there. We don't need to calculate 10 moves ahead from here. Yeah, it's just a basic, simple decision in this case.
I didn't know that was a pattern. I knew about the one with the bishop, but I didn't know it was the same thing with a pawn. That is new.
Yes.
That is new information to me. So that is probably a pattern that you can memorize
Apply
and
in
remember
different
in
context.
other situations.
Exactly. We are after such transferable skills, by the way. So yeah, knights are everywhere, pawns are everywhere. So you will definitely apply this knowledge at some point in your chess life. So it's very good. And if you take back with the knight, yeah, the knight gets more happy for sure. But
Yeah.
you're forever giving away d5 in this position, don't you think so? Why?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
outpost on d5, right? As you know, I mean, that knight is very happy to see this move. And that's a long-term problem for black because no black pawn can appear here or here and chase away that piece. So you gave them long-term advantages.
Yes.
And your knight can go to d4, but can always be chased away with c3, right? So we say white is long-lasting advantage, positionally speaking. They can also do this, and so on and so on. Yeah. So
Yeah.
beautiful. Two-choice task. This was last week. Same here. One more question for you. Black to
Bishop
play. What should
a6.
black play?
Bishop a6.
This was very fast.
And
Why is that?
then bishop takes knight.
Okay, please explain the whole process and
Because you
why.
don't want the knight to arrive at the outpost at c5. So you
Yes,
play bishop a6 to pin it to the rook, and then you just exchange it.
that's so nice. Well, you're almost as good as Oscar, Solveig, I have to say. You're very fast, right? So if you see the outpost on c5, yes. And last week you actually struggled a lot with this position. I remember.
I found
This was
bishop
not.
a6. I found bishop a6 fast, but I didn't find the exchange fast.
Yes. It took you a long time to even decide on this trade, yeah, because of this maybe a slight misconception. But usually that's the case, by the way. But not always, right? Like not every single bishop is better than every single knight in chess. So sometimes they can be traded off.
I just have
Isn't it?
to interrupt you a little bit because
For sure.
Alexandra raided our stream with
Yeah.
40 viewers that she
Cool.
sent to us. So thank you so much, Alexandra. Everyone should go follow her.
Thank you.
Give her a shout out. Thank you so much. And to the new viewers, we're just doing a chess lesson today. So right now we are repeating some position that John gave me last week to see if I remember the solutions.
Cool. By the way, you should teach me these concepts like raiding and so on. I'm an old man, like I have no idea what it means, but probably they come from a different channel, right? Like they just come
Yes,
directly
it
from that
basically
channel.
means that another streamer ended their stream and they sent the viewers over to our stream.
Okay. So
So
instead of watching that streamer, they are now watching us, all of them.
yes, correct.
Interesting. Okay.
So you
Great.
teach me chess and I will teach you streaming
Yeah, you have to teach
lingo.
me all these Twitch tricks,
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Just like Uno. These are new games to me, so I have to get better. Yep. So knight c5, so why, as you mentioned, is coming. And once knight appears on c5, I mean, that's a long-term problem for black, right? This bishop will be terrible.
Yeah.
So it's just the final exit before you get dominated by knight on c5. And yeah, that knight will be definitely better than the bishop in that endgame. So it's a final exit. Use some tactics like pin to engage in this exchange operation, and then you just take it from there. That's an objectively an equal rook endgame. You activate and so on and so on.
Yes.
Yes, this was nice. And maybe one final position from last week. White to play.
Rook b5. This is
This was fast.
power outpost.
This was so beautifully fast.
This is
Yes,
to
you learned.
prevent rook b4.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. This is so incredibly beautiful. I'm happy. I'm a happy teacher because it really shows that you understand the whole thing and also the reasons and so on. And even the name you remember, Power Outpost, yeah?
I
Rook b5.
have pretty terrible memory, but I have good visual memory, so that's a good thing.
Uh-huh. That's a very good thing. So you could definitely this strike your attention, this b5 square here.
Yeah.
Like visually. That's very good. Yeah, even the explanation was nice because if white doesn't play like this, for example, let's say king f1, then black will play rook b4 and they will use the power outpost for themselves. And now the rest is just improving their pieces. For example, they can do this, yeah? Knight c6 and later knight d4.
Yeah.
And good luck defending that position. It's not fun to play for white, for sure. It's just
no, that
terrible.
is not fun.
You're like no piece activity, every single piece is crying, and black is just enjoying the game. So again, final exit. Before it gets too late, you play rook b5. And not rook b8, of course, because even this endgame is a better knight for the bad bishop, right?
Yeah.
It's coming to d4 and just terrible bishop. hemmed in by its own pawns, and yeah, it's so visible in this position.
Yeah.
You don't want to end up in this endgame too.
No.
So also, if they take, how do you recapture?
We take with the C pawn, then we get a protected pass pawn, and they don't get a passer in the A file.
Nice. Because if you take like this, you also get a pass pawn, but then you also give them a pass pawn here.
Yeah.
And maybe they will roll at some point. Knight's a beautiful blockader. And yeah, again, maybe black is slightly better. Bishop is not great. But here, of course, even the bishop activates on this diagonal.
Yes, that's right.
It's a much better version, right? Much better version for white.
I forgot about that detail.
Yes. So again, like bishops definitely like more like open board and
Yeah.
clear files and diagonals and so on. And definitely bishop is happy with this recapture than the other one. And maybe if you ask the engine, of course, the engine is giving 0, 0, 0, 0. Actually, Jacob Agar told me it's kind of useless because current engines, modern engines, they are useless because they are great problem solvers. They can solve every single problem.
Yeah.
So when you see a number like 0, 0, 0, 0, it's because the machine is solving a problem, which humans mostly like they cannot, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not really relevant in some positions to use the engine and so on. Because I mean, we cannot think like an engine, but engines are great problem solvers. So he thinks we should use Fritz 6 instead of Fritz 16. That was one of the greatest insight that I got from him. I will make a short video about this.
We could use what?
He claims using Fritz 6, like an old model, maybe like 10 years ago, yeah?
Ah.
Fritz, like a chess engine called Fritz. Using Fritz 6 is better for humans than using Fritz 16 or 17. Right? Because Fritz 17 is much better in solving problems and then spits out moves like, evaluations like 0, 0, 0, 0, which, Fritz 6 is not strong enough. So Fritz 6 actually finds some problems and evaluates in a way that closely resembles a human evaluation, right?
I'll be looking forward to that video. That will be interesting.
That was super insightful. I have to create like 4 or 5 different, short videos about this, just for these, small snippets of insights. I mean, he's great. I'm very happy, Solveig. I mean, now I'm kind of curious because how about this? White to play?
Oh, it's this one where I found the problem
with the reputation, yeah.
with the problem with the bishop G5 thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so I suggested rerouting the knight via E1, C2, E3, but then I was worried about pushing the F pawn and then creating the pin on G5.
Exactly.
Yes.
I was too lazy. I should have improved this puzzle, but yeah, I just tested you. You even found the reputation, so it's beautiful. So you even found this little issue with this whole plan of F5, and the bishop is getting ready for bishop G5, yeah? Because your entire plan is to get the knight to E3 to D5, but now they're messing up this idea with bishop G5, and yeah, white has to do something like that, for sure. Maybe starting with G4 is smart, just to discourage the move F5 and so on. We can discuss. But you definitely start from the right direction. You notice that outpost on D5, you look at your bad knight on F3, right? This knight is crying on F3, does nothing. And then your game plan becomes, okay, route planning, yeah? How do I get my bad knight to this beautiful D5 outpost? It's actually very simple. It's one of the simplest decisions you can make on a chessboard,
Yeah.
These are not hard at all. Once you have these two things developed. Weakness awareness and feeling for the pieces. Which deserves a course probably on its own at some point. Okay. Right. Then we can maybe start from your game number 1, if you're up for it. Unless you want to bring something else from my course, some other discussions we can have.
Was that my game?
This is your game now. Against Udo. This is a classical game, 30 plus.
I have to...
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see.
Yes.
I can see.
So
I didn't recognize it because I saw it from the white side, so I was like, huh?
No. It's black. It's black. You are playing with the black pieces here.
The C5 and hope for the best opening again.
C5 and hope for the best. It's still good enough, I guess, for this level. We will see. We will see how you handle, in terms of principles and so on. Yeah, D5 is very logical, of course. It felt like we saw a similar opening last week as well, that you react the same way with D5 against Alapin. This is called the Alapin Sicilian, by the way, when they go C3. Very common for this level. Principled, because white wants to get this full center with D4, cuts down some theory of the Sicilians and so on. It's logical for white. But you also react very logically. Just take the center directly. Why not? Because that's what they give you, right? If they play knight c3, you can't play d5. But if they don't play knight c3, you can also get some information about your opponent's drawbacks of their last move. Now we can push d5 in this position, like very logically. Because also after takes, very importantly, there is no knight c3 because they already
Yes.
pushed c3. Yeah, so you can even like gain information about such nuances. D5, they go knight a3.
I
Not that
know.
common at all.
I know
Yeah.
this has happened sometimes because at some point they can have some bishop c4 idea, something.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
I've run into that before one time.
Okay. One of the main ideas is, of course, bishop c4, sometimes knight d5 directly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in some variations, I think it will happen in the game. Takes, knight d5. Comes with a 10 pawn c7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the basic point because that knight was already crying on b1 because they pushed c3,
Yeah.
right? It's sort of logical for white to get the knight somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's why they play the move. It looks like we can win a pawn. Like, is it even possible? So why have we looked at like d takes e4? I know you're not a pawn grabber, by the way, but it looks like that's a hanging pawn on e4. I mean, because you played knight c6 in the actual game. So what was wrong with this? D takes e4.
Because I liked my pawn on d5.
Yeah.
I,
No, I
I
think that's already good enough to my mind. It's if you think that, but generally, if we can grab a central pawn in chess, then we should do so, right? In the opening. They are good
yeah,
pawns.
I think my reasoning was okay, I'm grabbing a central pawn, but it's temporary because they're probably gonna pick that one up at some point because it's a bit loose. I don't know.
For example, directly, let's look at his double attack, right? Queen
Yeah.
a4 takes is an option. But I sort of like it for black because they are wasting so much time with their queen taking that pawn and it costs them 2 tempi, right?
Yeah.
We get the knights out with tempo on the queen. Please give me that, right? If someone asks you, okay, well, you'll have the same material, but they will make 7 moves in a row with the queen and allow you to get the knights out, please, right? I would like to take that with black. So why not? So you see,
So I should take the pawn next time, is what you're saying.
Yes, if there is no clear way for them to get the pawn back, easy way to get the pawn back while developing their pieces, if their queen needs to spend 3 tempo to
Yeah.
get the pawn back, right? Usually that must be a good thing. And you also see the connection between material and time in this case, right? Like to get the pawn back, they are wasting time in the opening, which is the main rule in the opening, right? Like very
Yeah.
rapid development of our pieces in the opening. That's what you play for.
Yes.
So
Yes.
in terms of chess principles, yes, please give me that pawn and good luck taking it back, right? So
Yes.
that's actually one good way of having extra material in chess, like logically, not because of the material per se, but it will actually, you will transform it at some point to something else, like quality or time.
Yes, and I guess that pawn is a bit annoying because you can't play knight f3. You can't push the d
Exactly.
pawn.
Very nice, very nicely
So
seen.
I
Because,
think
yes,
I see this now because I thought, oh, it's sort of random to just have my pawn there, but I can see it's actually a bit annoying.
yes. In fact, you might even argue one of the points of d5 is it actually creates a threat on e4, right? It's sort of a
Yes.
forcing move. Yeah, I want to take your pawn. So you have to do something against that, right? Like if you take my pawn, my queen activates. That's your point. Yeah, for example. So to me, it was a bit strange. Not that there must be a terrible move or something. Knight c6 is also quite logical, actually. But I'm a materialistic
Okay,
guy.
I
I
will
like pawns.
remember that one.
When playing chess,
It makes sense. I will remember that
makes
one.
sense. D4. Okay, so this is a very strange move. So why? This really shows me your style. Brave chess, brave chess with D5 is coming. Yes, look at this full tension in the center of the board. Yeah, look at this, beautiful.
So the reason I played e5 was because I didn't know what was going on, so I thought I would put my pawn in the center.
If you don't have no clue what's going on, put your pawn in the center. Can we call this like a new rule of thumb in chess?
I don't know because I didn't look too much at this game analysis, but I did notice that was marked as a mistake. So I guess it was not a good move.
Probably because there are so many choices for black, right? It's like full tension going on in the center of the board. So maybe that's why that's not a good move because maybe there's a much better solution. Like for example, why don't we try to win a pawn again? Just going back to my initial idea, right? Like for some reason you keep forgetting about this d takes e4 idea altogether.
Yes. I'm not interested apparently.
You are not interested. So I think we are finding some interesting conceptions, right, in your mind right now about chess potentially.
Yes, I think
That's
it's because I like to have my pawns in the center. So I think but I guess if I take it, I take the pawn. It's still in the center. It's just
in the center.
yeah.
Exactly.
I just like that nice formation,
Yes. It
visually.
looks beautiful, by the way. It looks very beautiful, those 3 pawns in the center. Like you
Yeah.
play like Morphy. I know you like Morphy, Paul Morphy,
Yeah.
right? Morphy is not materialistic. Morphy rather sacrifices pawns for time in chess.
Yeah.
So you sort of model your game with Paul Morphy, I think. Looks very logical, very principled indeed, like fighting for the center. But maybe there's something concrete that is a problem behind the move, yeah? Probably.
Yes.
I mean, I think the problem is already like maybe just takes, I guess, yeah? If you take back, then you lose the pawn. Yeah? It's now white who's giving an extra pawn, actually. That's the problem, potentially. With bishop b5s, maybe knight f3s and so on.
Yeah.
And somehow we don't have enough piece activity to get full compensation for the
Yeah.
pawn.
Yeah.
Yeah? That must be it. That's why probably the machine is giving like this as a mistake.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I mean, well, as a human, as a boring human, let's say, I would probably try to get one pawn in this position. Okay, give me the pawn. Of course, the drawback is d5, yeah? So the major drawback of you taking on e4 here, you might say, is you allow the move d5 to white, which, the mobile pawn center rolls forward, the knight has to move, and maybe there are some bishop e5 checks to follow, and so on and so on. But I guess, knight e5 is safe enough. Yeah, I mean, knight is loose on e5, but there's no way for white to exploit it directly. Bishop b5 check, bishop d7, I think it's not a big deal for us. We have an extra pawn, and they will pay for it, yeah? They will need to spend some time.
Also, I
So,
can
yeah.
see also Christian is in the chat. He's also a strong player, saying d takes e4 should be the move in the Alpine. So I'll definitely remember that next time.
Yes. I think, again, like not memorization, but general understanding, I
Yeah.
think is much more important, like transferable,
Yeah.
Like it's not always bad to grab pawns in the opening, like in chess. They will pay for it. They will pay
Yeah.
for it at some point.
And maybe
Yeah.
I'm too preoccupied with wanting things to look aesthetically
Beautiful.
pleasing. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I know. Sometimes you need to go to ugly directions to steal a pawn and
Yes.
consolidate it boringly in some sense. Yeah.
Okay, so d takes
Yes.
e4.
Yes. So now they take on d5. You take back. This is interesting. I think we're coming to a very interesting moment right now. You take on d4 and then they go knight b5. Yes. Knight b5. You got my course. My opponent's last move.
Yes.
What's the first question in chess? Whenever your opponent makes a move, what's the very first question?
What do they want to do? Or what
Yes.
is the
Yes. If I don't make a move right now, what's their next move? That's the question.
Fork on c7.
Or on c7, which you saw very quickly probably. And now all of our moves must parry this threat, of course.
Yeah.
You came up with the move bishop b6. Can you tell me the biggest problem with this move? Like, it looks ugly to my mind. It's not a pleasant move. It's not a pleasant move, but not that like a harsh word, but something is bad about this move. And I want you to explain this to me.
Storbonde, or not a storbonde, but it's not doing much there. But yeah,
That's not a good bishop, let's say, to start with. But tactically, there's something very ugly about this move as well. Tactical hygiene in chess involves, we talked about clamp last week. So I want to just discover yourself, like a discovery learning. What are you creating in terms of clamp checklist? One of those letters becomes crucial here.
So
clamp again, C stands for checks, L stands for loose pieces and squares, A stands for alignments, M is mobility restrictions, and P is for pass pawns.
So
your
the
move,
mobility restriction?
that as well, but there's one more. There is one more to this. It's already attacked once and guarded only once by the queen. I call these pieces as loose pieces. Yes, that's my definition.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
right?
I remembered. You told me that last time because I was thinking loose is hanging, but loose is it's attacked and defended the same amount. Yeah.
Yes, that's a crucial, let's say, framework in my course on blunder check. I think that's also the least redundant, or it's the simplest way to encode this information to your brain. Like equal number of attackers and defenders. That's what makes a piece or square loose in chess. So by going to d6, you literally create a loose piece. Attacked once, guarded only once by the queen. Second problem, queens are the worst defenders in chess, as you know, right?
Yes.
Queens hate to defend anything in chess. Queens hate to get tied down in guarding a loose piece or a square in chess.
Yes.
Why? Can you explain to me why? Why is that the case?
she has greater aspirations than.
Definitely. Definitely. They love it.
But I just I got a bit quiet because I started seeing some problems with that move that I didn't see earlier.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, I started thinking about the maybe c4,
Definitely.
queen
C4 is a move.
c5, and then maybe
Yes.
you can just continue.
But you already said it yourself. My question to you was this: why are queens the worst defenders in chess? Because any other piece except the queens can attack her and
Yeah.
force her to move, right?
Yeah, so
Because any other piece.
yeah, so the problem here is that they can threaten the queen away basically, and then the bishop is hanging with the fork.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why this move is so strange looking tactically, so unsafe
Yeah.
tactically, because you're not only creating a loose piece, but you're also tying down the queen on that loose
Yes.
piece. Two very, very bad things in terms of tactical awareness. Let's say that went wrong here.
So
So this
I'm
even move,
wondering. I'm
yeah,
trying to remember why I played that, because I totally agree. It looks really, really ugly.
yeah.
So
Well,
I
let me
think
tell
that
you, because you want to
was.
develop your king side, right?
Yes.
You want
So
to
I
develop your
think the
king side.
reasoning was, first of all, I wanted to develop my officer, and I didn't want to spend more time, on the queen and defending from that fork. So yeah, that
Right.
was probably it.
Right, right. But I think even there's a psychological barrier here, because the best move for black is, let's say, admit the mistake or not the mistake, but getting the humility. You have to go back to the queen. Let's say to d8.
Yeah.
That's the best move. Even queen d7 is good. It's a
Yeah.
safe distance. There's no knight frog. You will slowly play a6 and you
Yeah.
take it from there. Yeah. But queen retreats. Maybe they also are difficult for you to play right now because you want to go forward. You want to attack. You don't want to maybe just retreat for defensive function in this case with the queen. Yeah, it was a
Yes.
difficult move for maybe even for you to find or see in this position as the
No,
best.
I think both queen d7 and queen d8 are, natural candidate moves, and I also think they look more like moves that I usually play. But sometimes what happens when I play classical chess is that I start overthinking, and then I start wanting to get fancy. Like,
All right,
if
outsmarting principles.
so
Yes,
if
yes,
this
yes,
was,
yes.
a blitz game or something, I think I probably would have played one of those other moves because it's more natural. But
Right,
then
right.
I wanted to do something fancy. Probably that was better. But
Yeah.
Juntar in the chat is asking, isn't there a fork trick for the opponent there? With bishop c4, queen takes
Yeah, yeah.
c4, knight takes
Yes.
d6 fork.
That's a game confirmation. That's a game confirmation, by the way. They play the move bishop c4. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You see? They already want to punish this loose piece and the knight fork alignments.
And that didn't happen, by the way.
That didn't happen. That didn't happen. Luckily, you play queen e4, right? But in terms of calculation practice, you had no idea that this was coming to you, right? You were shocked most likely when you see the move bishop c4. Like,
Yes, yes.
yeah,
That
only
was
here
not
you
fun.
realized the problem you were facing. Yeah, only
Yeah,
after bishop c4.
that
Yes.
was not fun.
Yes. So as you go through my blunder check course, this will be one play earlier. You will notice these things before placing your bishop on d6. That's my entire goal with this course, to give you enough tactical awareness with this framework and checklist and so on. So you will already stop and double check everything before you create a loose piece on d6. Yeah, because that's the first awareness to my mind. That like a trigger, you can use like a trigger. You're creating a loose piece. You're tying down your queen on that piece. Stop.
Yeah,
Stop.
yeah,
It might
yeah,
be a blunder.
yeah,
That's a beautiful trigger to stop blunders.
yeah,
Because here you sort of got lucky, because if there's no queen e4, you might also get just lose in this position, directly.
yeah,
Like for example, queen c5, b4, and probably the game is over. Yeah. So just
yeah,
there's only queen e4 that keeps you in the game.
yeah.
And now you find it, of course.
Lucky.
The game continues. Bishop e3, another fancy move.
Yeah, there were so many fancy moves. I was so
Yeah.
stressed.
Just look at the board, look at the center, just full chaos going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a bit pain in my head when uh, at this point I started to get a bit of yeah, pain.
Yeah, it looks not fun at all to play for black this position. To put it this way, yeah, because they are getting the pieces out one by one, and we keep playing with the queen, and our pieces are still sleeping here. We are facing some issues, and for sure. So now you play bishop b8, which is the best move, by the way, because now you want to chase that knight, hopefully, and slowly get the pieces out. Well, the rook is not so happy to see this, but maybe we'll solve our problems at some point. Takes. Okay, you take back. That's fine. And now one more fancy move by white.
Ah,
Bishop takes f7.
yeah, very fancy.
Yes. Of course, you made the right move here, because if you take the bishop, you solve knight g5 check, which was their main point.
Yeah, another fork. It's just like forks all over the place in this game.
Yes, right? Because the queens are the queen is just leaving the base and just pushing around basically in the middle of the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, king f8, best move. I think you're still in the game, by the way, with best play, because white also has some issues to solve right now, like the pinned bishop and the king is in the center. This is sort of hanging and yeah, with best play, I think you will survive. They took on g8, you took on e3, very good. There is no queen d6 mate, that's important. Yeah, the bishop covers and so on. So the queen is sort of harmless. And now your main threat is to take the bishop. So they have to react to that move, which they did. Bishop b3.
And
Now comes my question to you.
I can't
Yes.
believe the double check was a mistake.
Yes, exactly, right? So I was like, will she make this move or will she not make this move? Always tricky, right? Always tricky to discuss.
Yeah, I was looking at of course, queen b4, but then I saw knight c3.
Yes.
So
Okay.
So
then you decided to take on f2.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought that must be good.
So, okay, that must be good out of general principles and not because of some concrete analysis of the position, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, Morphy will not play the move. You're molding Morphy for sure. First of all, I mean, why, right? Like you're just taking the pawn f2. It's sort of irrelevant, and their rook is coming to e1 on the next turn. So your king is still in the center.
I guess I got a lot of problem on that diagonal, so that was probably one of the issues with taking that. But they could have just taken my pawn, and the file would be open anyways.
But I think you generally welcome that, because at the very least you will take back with check, right? Like at the very least you have this queen e3 check, and things are under control.
Yeah.
They will also lose time and so on. Maybe you thought their king is going to castle next move. Yeah, maybe that's why you want to take on f2, because their king might find some safety, let's say. Yeah. Maybe that explains your decision, because to me that's a bigger issue. How can that rook join the game? Maybe castle short is the right now the threat, which force to take. Yeah. But you see, it's clearly helping their rook in this position. And your king is still here, by the way. Like in terms of king safety, we did not improve our position. And nobody can attack the king on f2, right? Like just impossible. Look at how beautiful this knight is defending everything.
Yes.
And yeah, also like your rooks are sleeping. They don't do much in this position. Rook e1s are coming. Bishop is beautiful. And not to mention queen d5 ideas. If the queen moves, like it's dangerous. It's very dangerous for our
this was not fun. I was not happy here. I just want to mention Iontar is suggesting queen b4. That was one of my candidate moves, as I said, but I didn't play it because knight c3, so I went for the takes on f2 instead.
Yeah. Apparently black is fine here. Even here, it's not so easy to play, by the way. But with some accurate moves like queen c5, the whole idea is, of course, to not allow rook e1 or rook f1 and force the king to f1. So this rook is still sleeping, and maybe with best play you can consolidate. Yeah, slowly bishop g4, for example. Slowly get the pieces out. Maybe rook d8, and we have still king on f8, but they also have a king on f1. That's a basic claim in this position.
Yeah, and Christian is writing, how about a6, knight c3, e takes f2, bishop a7?
So here a6 is the plan.
Knight c3, e takes f2, bishop a7.
Bishop a7 check. That's interesting. That's definitely interesting. And you're definitely driving the king to f1, let's say. So that's a good sign in a way that the rook is still stuck. But, the queen is still hanging, and how do you continue here? Maybe queen e3s. Maybe queen e3s and so on. Okay. Understandable. There's some coordination here, and the king is still here.
And next,
I would like to go here.
He says,
said that there's some queen e6 ideas.
Next bishop g4, he says.
Yeah, of course. If you have all these moves in, I would like to take black, but there's also some issues here, like queen d6 and so on. The drawback of the bishop moving here.
Yeah.
So definitely white is enjoying this position. It's more difficult to play for black. 100%. And
you also got another question, John.
Yeah.
Junta is asking, do you think it's possible for an 18-year-old 1000-rated player to become 2000 FIDE in 10 years?
1800. How old are they?
18 years.
Yeah, sure.
1000 rated, become 2000 FIDE in 10 years.
Okay. If they only learned the game of chess at the age of 18 or recently or what? Maybe that's just irrelevant, yeah, because they are 1000 anyway. I mean, with practice, definitely, I think it's possible. I also started chess quite late in life, and I became a candidate master. So if they put the real effort and they would practice, why not?
When did you start?
I mean, I learned the game of chess at the age of 8, but I become serious maybe around the age of 18, maybe 19, yeah, because there's, I mean, of course, I was reading some books in high school, 15, 16, but there was this crazy big university exam in Turkey, which determined your entire life. So that was the basic struggle for the high school years. And
Yeah.
only after I went to the university, I became serious. And I got like, I became a master, more or less,
Yeah.
after 2, 3 years of very intense work. So it's possible if you do the work. Nothing is stopping you.
So, in
Yes.
this position, what was the right thing to do again?
Not take on f2 for sure. Not take on f2 because you see there's no follow-up and the rook is coming to e1. Like this itself is enough to not to go for this. Apparently, yeah, queen b4 check, and e takes f2 is the best. Even here, you need to be accurate. Like you need to find these moves to have a playable position. You know,
Yeah.
it's not easy at all.
No.
Like you have to always guard the square, for example, on d5 against these invasions. Yeah, not easy at all. Like, knight e4s and so on. It just looks ugly for black.
Yeah.
So it's all because of the initial phase. Yeah, something went wrong. We have to tie it to what went wrong initially.
So,
Like,
the
yeah,
taking the pawn on e4 and then putting myself into trouble with the bishop d6.
exactly.
That's
So
where
this
it
was
went
the
wrong.
COVID-19 virus that spread the entire
Yeah.
disease to the entire position. Yeah,
But I think
this
also
was the
my
bug.
opponent plays quite well, no?
No, but I think he played similarly before. Yeah, because if they play knight a3, they surely have played similarly before. You know, in those
Okay.
positions, they
Yeah.
surely have some ideas of
Yeah.
how to react to these moves.
Yeah.
So probably. But yeah, this is the biggest lesson from this game to my mind. You create loose piece, you must be vigilant because if you really fix this, so I think about that. Every single game will feature these positions. Every single game will feature loose pieces and blunders. This is the biggest way to raise your floor in chess, you know?
Yes.
Consistently triggering yourself when you create a loose piece in chess. Imagine what an impact it will make to your game.
Yes.
Just to stop these moves, you know?
Yes.
So
I will try my best to work
yes.
on that.
It won't happen tomorrow, by the way. We are here for a long-term grind, you know? Like, don't be
Yes.
harsh on yourself. We are taking
No,
the right
no.
lessons.
No, but this is quite valuable, of course.
Yeah. Even, you know, it can go to your checklist. It can be deliberate at the beginning. You play slow games, every single move, you know, you take your time. You ask yourself, am I creating a loose piece if I make this move? You know, like a normal checklist for pilots when they are,
Yes.
you know, you can start very slowly at the beginning. And over time, if you do it constantly, it will just be second nature.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Queen d5 again, queen d5, and the game is already over. Yeah, because I mean they gain coordination. Your queen is offside, and yeah, now it's already becomes visible that we have no chance. Rook e1 or rook f1. I think rook e1 is also
this
quite
is so
logical.
awful.
Yeah, I mean the rook will never come to the game. This rook, like, if you look at both rooks, right, they are waiting for the next game basically. That's the problem right now. Like that's the basic problem. And knight g5. Yeah, I mean probably there are other moves for white that wins, but yeah. But somehow you managed to turn this game around, which is insane to my mind, which is so crazy.
I got
Because
some
now
help.
it's like almost looks like mate, but king e8, yes. Rook e1 again looks like resigns, and you find the move knight e5.
This one I
The
was
bishop
quite
defends.
happy about.
Yeah, you should be happy of how you turn this game around. Actually, knight 3 looks like a bad move because they are retreating their pieces. Instead, the best move for white is the forward move, rook f7, using your CCT method, let's say. Yeah, that's it. That's a threat. That's a threat on the queen. That should be checked first.
That's a nice
that
one.
knight is pinned, let's say. Yeah, that knight is pinned, like not absolutely pinned, but it's a relative pin. If they take, then they lose the queen and so on. Well, if the queen moves, then I guess disaster is waiting for us. So it just looks very ugly for black for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting, right? Instead of going forward, they retreat the knight, and now we have a chance to come back to the game again. which you did. Beautiful. Bishop e6 is a beautiful defensive move because you're sacking the bishop to exchange the queens in this position, right?
Yes.
This was beautiful calculation, by the way. Yeah, I guess your main point is that if they take, then you can do this, I assume, yeah? This even comes with a check. It's actually allowed. And then I guess in this position you will survive. You have survival chances, yeah? Because,
Yes.
I mean, it's equal material. That's the best you get anyway from this position. So bishop e6.
Yeah,
Oh,
they hung
queen
their
takes
queen. Yeah.
d5. Oh, yeah, they should get my course on Chessable. Chapter
Yeah,
number
I
2.
was very surprised when I saw that. I was wondering maybe it was a mouse slip.
Or, simply not seeing the bishop because, I mean, just
Yeah,
it's
you're not.
offside.
Yep, suddenly that bishop became very useful.
Yes. It's ambush. People miss those sniper bishops in ambush.
I guess it's
So it's one of
because
those
you're not
reasons.
used to having them there, so
Yes, exactly. It's not in their pattern, to see a
yeah.
bishop like that. So yeah, if they hang their pieces, we take it. We take those games. Yes, even this is a nice face that you converted. Queen c5 check, rook e8, logical. Yeah, there is no bishop a4 checks. You create an alignment, but they can't exploit this alignment, so it's nice. Knight e5 check. Yes, you still need to calculate, by the way, but I guess you did. You did? Wait, because of this, yeah? This back
Yes.
rank mate, I think, is the problem. Yes. If they take on e8, then comes this, and this is just game over.
Yes.
So here they lost on time. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. Wow. What a
I got lucky. I
thrilling
got
game.
very lucky. I did not deserve to win that game, I think. But
I think regardless of the end results, I think it's much more important to look at those decisions and learn from
yeah.
those decisions. You could also
So
just lose.
definitely
Yeah,
D takes E4. I will remember in that Alpin opening.
for sure.
That I will remember that one. And because it's not just a loose pawn, it's also doing it's a hindering knight
It's
f3.
hindering their development. Nice
Yes,
way to
and
put
it's
it. Yeah.
also kind of stopping the d pawn, I guess.
Exactly as well. Yes. It serves a
So
function.
I will remember that one, and then the very ugly bishop d6
Oh yeah.
because of the clamp. So because of
Because of the
the
clamp. Yes.
the loose I created
Yeah.
a loose piece. And also the queen is stuck defending, which is not good. So
Exactly right. Like doubly bad. You create a
yeah,
loose piece, plus you're tying down your queen on that loose piece. That's the last thing you want in chess. Like the last thing
yes.
you want is this when it comes to L part of
So
clamp. The
I
worst possible
created
L happens here. You know,
I created the worst loose piece because it's the
worst
queen that
possible
is
loose piece
yes.
creation, and such a beautiful mistake to learn from. It's
So
a beautiful mistake.
I think also that bishop d3 move maybe it's just like keep it simple, stupid, like queen d7 or queen d8. You don't need to be fancy there just because you don't want to
Exactly.
move your queen.
Exactly. Yep. That's the entire concept of my course.
Yeah.
People become fancy. They try to become fancy. They learn, move number 25 in the opening. And then meanwhile, most games are decided by these, simple decisions like,
Yeah.
not blundering stuff. That's much more important.
Yes.
Yeah. So cool. So this is the biggest lesson from this game for sure. Like those two things, I think is quite important. And even not taking on f2, I think it was quite instructive, like not to
Yeah.
blindly take such pawns.
Mm.
By the way, if you just wait in this position, let's say bishop g4, just asking myself whether that was actually a threat, castling short. Can you see a good move for white in this position, Solveig? Can you see a good move for black in this position? That was on me.
For black.
Yeah.
Maybe just exchange the knight for the bishop. And then they kind of have to take that with the queen or...
That's one of those ideas for sure. But look, the drawback principle, that's what you are right now in my course, right? The drawback of the opponent's last move. There's a very clear drawback to this move, tactically, that you should exploit.
I'm looking at the h2 pawn.
Okay?
So, yeah. So that's...
What else can be a drawback? They have a very specific piece alignment.
Oh my god, I'm blind. E2.
Yes,
Jesus.
right? They create this piece alignment that calls for a
Jesus.
very atypical pawn fork, right? Like how often we get a pawn on the 7th rank pawn forking heavy pieces like that, right?
Yeah.
It's very uncommon. Very
Yeah.
uncommon.
Yeah, so they
Which
can't
basically
actually
means, to
castle.
my mind, which basically means here that the real threat is not castle short, right? To my
Yeah.
mind. It's not a real threat because if they castle short comes a pawn fork. Fine, that's good news for me. I don't need to take on f2 because that only makes your rook happy. I don't want to take on f2.
Yes.
I just do
Yes.
an improving move. I will make a move that improves my position. Maybe a6. Okay, maybe bishop g4, right? Seems to be an
Yeah.
improvement to me. Why not? And you take it from there. If they take on a3, you can always take back with the queen, right? And the king
Yeah.
is still stuck. You want to exchange the queens, of
And if
course.
they
Of course, you want
play,
to exchange.
what about h3?
If h3, of course, you
Just
take the knight, yeah?
exchange? Yeah.
You take the knight, yeah.
Yeah.
If they exchange the queens, you're very happy, given your king's location, right?
Yeah.
You're very happy to go to this endgame without the
Yeah.
queens, for sure,
Yeah.
because your king was much less safe.
Yes.
And if they take back, okay, now we are talking. I mean, now we have options, yeah? We can even take and do queen h4 check, whatever. You can play this position in different ways.
Yeah.
Yes. So those three things I think are great takeaways from this game. Then we
And-
move to the next one if you have no other questions.
Just not a question, but I did notice that when I played this, because this was a classical game, I did notice that my brain feels a bit sluggish, a bit hard to calculate and visualize, and an inkling towards being lazy. So I had to, fight my brain a bit to not be lazy. And yeah, I just felt like the calculation and visualization is not on top, to say it like that.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
probably will just improve week by week by staying consistent, I guess.
For sure. I mean, you only started this routine just this week. So don't be harsh on yourself. It will only get better over time.
Yeah.
Just try to pick some time in the day that you're fresh, Like don't pick up time that you're definitely sluggish, like maybe in the middle of the night or whatever. I'm not sure when you're playing the games, but yeah, of course you're working as well. You're a working adult, right? So you cannot really, find the best time perhaps, but try to be as fresh as possible. At least when it comes to these games, give your best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will.
Yes.
Okay.
Then we can move on to the next game.
So I think the next game was probably not the most interesting one because I think they just hung a piece. But again, I think just the opening a bit here because I don't really know all of this, and maybe that is the wrong way to put the focus. But I'm just a little bit curious about this one because I just usually take these pawns when they're offered.
Yeah, I mean, generally taking is fine. Black is fine. When taking, black is also fine of not taking. Sometimes giving up the pawn like that, that's also logical for black. If you want to, let's say, create a certain structure, like these pieces go here, d6, you play a Maroczy structure, more positional, let's say. So I like to play like this as black, as a positional player myself.
But I hate that playing against that Maroczy structure. I hate it. That was
okay. You hate it. Okay, then don't go there if you hate it. Don't go there. Right? Don't go there. Then take it. Take it. There are of course many moves. I mean, you can even play e5. Like looks crazy, but even e5 exists. There are other moves that exist for black. It's just there are different approaches for black for sure to this position. But if you take, it's logical, it's sound, and even how you play actually is quite smart. Like you actually played e6 and so on. You played normal chess, beautiful chess, e6. You're blunting their pieces like that. Get those 2 pawns in the center.
Okay, so you're like this?
Yes, your issue was not in the opening. You got yourself a beautiful opening in this case. Just very principled. Get the pieces out, try to blunt their bishop on this diagonal, like there's no direct. You should of course look at direct moves like this. They never work for white here, but you should have a look because the bishop is coming to this diagonal. That's why they sometimes play moves like e6, get those structures against this Smith-Morra. But even the way that you played, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong here. e6, again, like the queen is sort of misplaced on b3. What is she doing? There's nothing going on here. And she's even exposed to such ideas at some point, like knight a5. Extra pawn for black, right? They will suffer to get the pawn back. And you will slowly get the pieces out in this position. Just castle short and take it from there.
So did you like e6 better? Because the reason I played d6 is because I usually play d6, g6 structure, but then I was forced to play e6 anyway, so
Yes, yes.
should I just do
Like,
e6?
yeah, I think against pure Smith Mora, this is not really great for black because they
Yeah.
have some direct pressure on f7, for example. Yeah, in
Yeah.
those positions. So this needs more, yeah, more tricky approaches maybe for black, maybe some more e6 lines.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's worth to spend some time also looking at
Yeah.
some part of theory here for black,
Okay.
just to know, how exactly we equalize, how exactly we are having an extra pawn and with an okay position for black for sure.
What is the?
So
But I think. Sorry, I'm asking a lot of things here. But I think
sure.
one of the reasons I didn't play e6 was because I was afraid of e5 and then my d pawn.
Yes. Yes.
Is that a
Yeah.
problem?
No, that's exactly why you should have a look at these positions. And definitely, like here, for example, d6 exists. You challenge that pawn instantly. That's important,
Okay.
right? That's very important
Yeah.
because if they take, then you're very happy. You never want to give them this clamp on d6. You're right.
Yeah.
Like if you keep on waiting, then they will probably put more pressure on d6, make it impossible for you to play d6 and dark square pressure. That's what they want.
Can you play
So, but
d5?
around here, yeah, around here you always have d6 to challenge that pawn, like
Can
very
you play
typical.
d5?
I'm sorry.
Can you play d5?
Even d5 is a move. Yeah, even d5 is a move because you're stopping knight e4s. You're stopping those clamps to d6, right?
Yeah.
Because your bishop covers d6. It's not the end of the world. Knight b5, there's always a6 against knight b5. Well, it's only if they go here, you just take, right? They can't achieve much on d6 in those positions. So even d5 exists. So that's the point. Like e6 is actually very healthy against Midmora. And I think that's the best way for black to play even those positions, like objectively.
Okay.
Sometimes in this version as well, you start e6, d6, and take it from there.
Yeah.
Because you did nothing wrong, You just follow opening principles still in this position. You did
Yeah.
nothing, like you didn't commit a crime. So
Yeah.
otherwise, everybody would play this, by the way. If this will be like winning, if the sacrifice was winning for white at all times, everybody will play this. Having said that, that's also respectable gambit for white, It's a respectable gambit for white because, yes, logical. And they get the pieces out in a certain schema.
Oh, sorry.
Lots of repeating patterns for white as well. Like bishop usually goes to c4, they want the castle short, bishop e3, queen e2, rook d1s, and so on and so on. Maybe rook c1, rook d1. There's a certain scheme of things also for white that usually holds here. That's why some players choose this as white, which is respectable. But the way that you reacted was nice. I mean, queen b3 is unusual, as I said. Usually the queen goes here in those structures to support e5 and so on.
Yeah.
And here it's like a pawn. They gave you a pawn. Thank you so much for giving me the pawn. You take it, right? Again, you did nothing wrong. You take the extra pawn.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I was
now
wondering
you have
about
two
that
pawns
one.
up. Yeah.
But
and they have
I
no
think I did, even though I ended up winning this game, I think along here, I think I did some mistakes.
Here comes the key moment. Here comes the key mistake.
Yeah.
So far, I went fast because the real issue is coming here, around
Yeah.
here, that we should discuss. Because so far, if you look at the big picture, well, 2 extra pawns for black. If I ask you this way, you have 2 pawns extra, but of course, white is better developed. So what's your game plan in this position? What should black play?
Trade.
Please form a plan.
I just want to trade pieces.
Trade pieces, in the long run, that's your plan, for sure. Every single piece trade favors you, but they are
I need to
leading you in
castle.
time. Exactly. You need to castle in this position. That's your top priority, Solveig,
Yes.
isn't it? Because you already have an extra material. If you manage to safeguard your king, then you'll always be better in that position, right? Like in terms of Jeremy Silman's imbalances idea, imbalances, you look at one imbalance, black is extra material, then comes the other imbalance, white is better better developed in this position.
Did I not play bishop e7 in here?
No, you play the move knight d4. That's a big, big, big no-no to my mind, Right? Like, tell me which principle you're breaking by playing knight d4. Or not say principle, because Jacob Aagaard doesn't like the word. Let's say concept. There's one chess concept that you're breaking with knight d4.
The opening principles.
Yes, and why is that?
Because I'm prioritizing moving my pieces twice instead of castling. And I think I also thought about that when I made that move, but then I thought, I'm 2 pawns up, is fine.
Yeah. Very generic thinking, right? I have an extra 2 pawn
And I
one
also,
set
I also
concept.
thought, I think I also, yeah, I remember. I think I also got a bit worried about that D file, so I thought I'll just chuck my knight in the middle there, and
Yeah.
if they trade, I'll have my pawn in the middle, and
Yeah.
then that wouldn't be open. I thought I had time, but then
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
I started putting a little bit pressure, and I think yeah, this was wrong. Just
Yeah.
bishop e7, right? Is normal.
Just bishop e7 castle, please.
Yeah.
That's the top priority for you right now. Just bishop e7 castle. And nobody's stopping you. You will castle eventually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, rook d1 should be checked. It's good that you saw this move, by the way. Rook d1 is coming. And here you need to do something as black, for sure. And you need to be careful. For example, if you go to c7, maybe there are some knight b5 jumps, Like it needs some calculation, for sure, for black.
Yeah.
But maybe some
But
other
then
moves.
you
Maybe
can
not
probably
doing it.
just go queen b8, maybe.
Even queen b8 here is logical because there's no knight e6. You're right. You're right. You will slowly chase that knight and then castle short. Fine. Right? But even bishop b7, for example. Why not? Okay, maybe you're losing b7,
Yeah,
but there's some, knight
yeah.
a5. There's some rook b8 at that moment.
Yeah.
It's not that easy also for white to take that pawn. Like there are some tricks like this.
Yeah.
So definitely, but that's your top priority for black. This is the move that you want to make it work. This is the strategically desirable move that you really want to play. These two moves, of course. And then you're really focusing on this move.
Again,
Yeah.
keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Stupid.
Just like last game, Solveig.
Yes.
Keep it simple.
Yes. Keep it
simple but principled decisions was helping you here.
Yeah.
But you choose a forward move again. Like forward move again, just like the queen last time. You go forward the knight, and of course they should have taken that knight. They didn't. They do this check, which is a little bit strange to me because you can easily play bishop d7, and now they need to lose more time with the queen on a4. So they should have taken that knight in this position and maybe rook d1 in this position, right? Maybe some knight b5 to get the pawn back as soon as possible. That's the game plan. Still, you should play bishop b7 and castle short, by the way.
Yeah.
But then maybe, you are giving them one tempo to attack the pawn on d4. That's the better version for white, for sure. Compared to the actual game,
Yeah.
So, but they didn't play like that. They play queen e4, which is helping you. You just get the extra tempo. And here comes another question. Our audience can also think here. Black to play? Black to play. How should black play here? Black is, let's say, winning idea.
I think I did play knight takes f3 check.
Yes.
Because I was delusional and wanted to open up the king, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, because you're a king hunter. You're a berserker. You want to go and kill the opponent's king. That's why you're doing this trade, right? You just want to double those pawns.
Yes.
Your eye wants to checkmate the opponent's king here. That's why you took the knight on f3. That's why you made that move, for sure. Okay?
Yeah.
Give yourself choices, please. That's the secret of chess calculation. Most calculation mistakes happen on the very first move.
Take on b5 with the knight or the bishop.
Okay.
Definitely comes to mind.
Yes.
And maybe even a6.
a6, even directly, is a thought, for sure. Knight takes b5 is a candidate. Bishop takes b5 is a candidate.
Yeah.
And knight f3 is also a candidate, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if I ask you, please choose one. Which is the most promising? And which one should be calculated first in terms of CCT method, let's say, yeah? Which ones are the most forcing?
Bishop takes b5.
Okay.
I think.
What
because it comes with tempo on the queen.
Okay.
Yeah. Then they will have to take with the knight.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just take it back and play. No, you don't. Or you played queen d7 after? No?
Okay, so your idea is to somehow pin and win, yeah? Create a pin on this diagonal and maybe try to win their queen if they move knight on b5. You're looking at bishop takes b5, knight takes b5, queen d7 at that moment, yeah? Or what?
Yeah. Or just take it with your knight. I don't know.
Even trade those pieces. Yeah, okay, because you have two extra pawns. That's also the thought, for sure. And queen d7. And
Yeah.
queen d7. If they take, you can even take back with the knight and you defend the pawn on e5. Aha. Maybe that's your thought, yeah? 2 extra pawns.
Yeah.
2 extra pawns. Also logical, I would say. There's nothing wrong with that. Simplification. But you're missing one key tactical issue as well. Like, if I ask you this way, knight takes b5 and bishop takes b5. One of these moves seem to be much more stronger in terms of punishing the opponent's alignment. Again, we are talking about alignments. You're creating an alignment that you will exploit on next turn. And you will actually win a piece.
Knight takes b5, knight takes b5, a6.
That's it. Can you visualize it? That's a very short but nice calculation.
I can visualize it.
Aha. Knight takes b5, knight takes b5, a6.
Yes.
Pin and win, right? Just look at the strength of that pin.
But what about rook d1?
Here, rook d1.
No. No.
You mean here?
I know that you were right, but I said no to myself because it was a stupid thought.
No, not stupid, but here, right? So it's the first thing to understand, right? In terms of tactical awareness, this, to my mind, looks much stronger tactically because you're literally making this bishop much stronger. You're creating a pin. You're literally creating a pinned knight on b5 because of this. So it's definitely more interesting to my mind in terms of tactical awareness than bishop takes b5. So I would analyze this move first because there's a bigger gain in this line, yeah? Because what if I just pin and win that knight on b5, yeah?
Yeah.
I increase my goals in this position tactically.
Pin and win.
Pin and win. Very simple again, going back to the basics, yeah? Pin and win.
I haven't heard pin and win before.
There's also PP to PP.
Yeah.
I learned recently, yeah? PP to PP.
Yeah, I was really wondering what the chat was talking about when they were talking about PPs.
I was shocked to learn this. I mean,
but
like
then,
I'm a coach for many years. I never heard PP to PP.
Then I understood put pressure on the pin beast.
Yes, like Swedish PP long stocking would be happy as well. PP
yes.
to PP. Yeah. A6 and yeah, just simple chess. That knight drops on the next turn. Of course, there are some checks to calculate, but you just always take that knight. An extra piece for black. Completely winning position for black, for sure. Just to conclude this line, by the way, if you play the move queen d7, here's why. I'm seeing a good move for white. Can you see it as well? Let's try to blunder check the move queen d7 here.
Yes. No, wait. Let me think before I answer for once.
For sure.
Knight c7 isn't a problem. Yeah, it is a problem. It is a problem. Not because you lose the queen, but because you lose the rook, yeah.
Exactly. So queen d7.
Yeah, queen d7, knight c7, and then you have to go king e7, and then they take the rook, yeah.
Yes. They first trade, let's say, and then they take the rook. Yes. Right? What you're doing is that you're sort of creating a hanging score on c7.
Yeah.
Because the queen is a pin piece.
Yeah. Right? So I think... yeah, so I think I understand what went wrong here now. I remember because I looked at this line and then I looked at the knight takes f3 line and then I looked at that line that you showed now and then I didn't bother to do the other one because I thought they must be, maybe that's probably,
Right.
Lazy.
Right. Yeah. Also a typical pattern, by the way, recurrent pattern in those structures. They do this queen a4 check. They usually, they sometimes respond to bishop b7, bishop b5. So always, can I make my bishop stronger, basically, by having this move first?
Yes.
And then exploring the pin, alignment, and so on. So definitely...
I should have been, that should probably be the first thing I look at.
Yes. Also, when you go to Puzzle Rush, usually you see such problems, right? Like very quick tactical awareness and so on. Like, okay, you just create a pin piece and then attack and win the pin piece.
Yeah.
It's should be relatively fast in our vision, let's say. Yeah, when you talk about tactical vision, you talk about stuff like this, like seeing those things relatively quickly. Yes.
I just have to answer chat quickly. They're asking about the pronunciation of my name, if it is the same as in Swedish. I think it is. I think it's also a normal Swedish name, so it's Solveig. That's the pronunciation, Solveig. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought this name doesn't exist in Sweden, but maybe it does. Yeah,
I
you know
think
better,
it
of course.
does, and also my last name, Friberg. I think that
Yeah,
is also
that
very
sounds very
common here.
Swedish to me for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
why?
maybe it exists in Swedish as well, but you know, it's not the most popular name in either country. Most of the
Yeah.
my name sisters are in the retiring home.
Really interesting.
It's very old school.
Old school. Cool.
Yeah.
Also
Okay.
means the path of the sun. The path of the sun. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. This is a beautiful name.
But
You're
you
following
didn't
the
like
sun
this
path.
one, Knight xf3.
Knight takes f3 definitely shows your style. You want to checkmate the opponent's king. The problem is who is giving the checkmate here? Yeah. Like look at our pieces.
And
Like who's
I
giving the
thought,
mate?
oh, maybe I can go with the knight and then open the diagonal.
Something
And
will
then...
happen, right? Something might happen. Yes. I mean, having said that, you have an extra 2 pawns. I mean, after all, right? Like 2 extra pawns, we take it.
Yeah.
We take it. Again, just shows your style because I will definitely play queen d7 here. You know, I have 2 extra pawns in my pocket. I have $1,000 in my pocket. There is no risk to be taken. I want to win in a boring way. Please exchange the queens, and I will consolidate my 2 extra pawns here. That's a thought of an old candidate master. You know, as Paul Keres says, the older I get, the more value I'm giving to pawns. That's what great Grandmaster Paul Keres says. And Ruben Fine said, very famous psychologist and grandmaster from the States, finger or pawn, I always take the pawn, he said. So I would rather give a finger for the pawn.
Wow.
So these old Soviets really value the pawns as they get older as well. So yeah, it definitely shows your style. You refuse the queen trade here. Why? Because you want to checkmate your opponent's king, right? You're consistent. You're keeping the queens on the board.
Yeah.
That's the thought. Bishop c5, get the pieces out finally. Queen e4, castles, please. No, again, we should discuss this. We should discuss this, yeah? Like, finally, Solveig, finally, your king wants to castle and feel safe in his position. Simple, right? Principled chess. Look like this.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing.
No, but you know, like mistakes are like interestingly recurrent in some sense. Yeah, there's, I think, like psychological as well. Like you don't want to engage in certain moves, maybe out of principle, or
I think also
for
because
some other reason.
sometimes when I feel like I'm better, I play worse.
Like in a way that you get complacent, perhaps.
Yes.
Or Bishop d4. I mean, I try to understand Bishop d4, by the way, because maybe you're just closing the d file.
Yeah, I think I was very worried about the d file for some reason.
Because maybe you thought if you castle short, then this is coming, and PP on the PP is happening here.
Yeah, okay, but I can still play Bishop d4.
Maybe you can still play Bishop d4, exactly as you mentioned. Having said that, maybe some knight b5s, you know, they will maybe attack and take that pin bishop and so on. I mean, I would definitely just be happy with the moves like queen e7 and take it from there, you know, just rook d8 and play simple chess.
I'm not very eager to castle in this game for some reason, which is weird.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like something strange. Like you refuse to castle.
Yeah.
By the way, also, I would not take on b5 myself here. I would not take on b5. Having said that, you're scared about rook d1, so that explains. Yeah? I would rather play a6 and exchange on b7 myself, because now there's no more pin on the d file, after a queen trade, you know. This is a much better version for me. Black. Much better version for me. But even allowing this,
I played pretty badly this game, yeah.
Probably they will play rook d1 here anyway. Like it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know. Like you're so scared about rook d1, but now you actually invite rook d1.
Yes.
You know, they will pin your knight right now actually if they play rook d1, and you cannot castle. You have still bishop here. So that's also interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
All these little nuances, you know.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference. But then they chase out the random pawn. They give you time to get the pieces out. Yes, you should be happy to castle, but you don't. And then what happens? Bishop g5 happens. It's also visual thinking, right? Because they think they're smart.
That was very weird. That was
the queen is looking here. The queen is the worst defender in chess, right? There's a loose rook, actually. That's a loose rook. Attacked once, guarded only once. So they want to exploit the loose rook by this move.
But they
what
forget
they are missing is that
it comes with that was very weird.
So here are the curtains. They resign.
Okay, so the lesson. Okay, first of all, I know that e6 is the right structure to play against the Smith Mora if I don't want to go into the Moroxy kind of things.
Yes.
And also keep it simple. Just play bishop e7.
Exactly. That's much more important to my mind than memorizing Smith-Mora theory, because
yeah.
like it's much more recurrent in your games to play those moves with confidence, with ease, simple decisions, than memorizing one more move in Smith-Mora.
Yeah.
So yes,
Yes, I just keep it simple. Bishop e7, castle a bit earlier,
please,
and
please.
also the tactical awareness. I
Here.
got a bit lazy. I didn't really want to calculate all of this, so then I thought I'll just take on f3 and open the king. That looks fun. And
Right,
I
hand
wasn't
waving.
really, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks beautiful. The king is weakened. So
But
it's again, like taking a step back. And this, of course, takes time. You cannot just blindly play the move. You have choices, like you have 3 candidates here to calculate. So it's
yeah,
a perfect moment also, to slow down
but
and give yourself
I'm
choices.
kind of realizing because, and it's also quite interesting because when I started playing chess in 2022.
Yeah.
And then I was so perfectionistic that I calculated everything all the time. From move 2, I was looking at everything because I was so scared of making a mistake. So it's actually kind of weird to realize that now I'm in a place where I'm too lazy to do what I previously was doing compulsively. So I maybe I need to land somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I think I need to fight that laziness a bit. I think also it might be a symptom of too much speed chess. You get a bit lazy.
I think so. I think you're sort of conditioned right now with too much blitz.
Yeah.
Across all these months.
Yeah.
So definitely you can see that, those habits, this impulsivity to play some moves without much calculation. So it will take time. Even, that's why also, even like getting my course on Chessable, taking your time with every single position, that's a good habit as well.
So I think definitely speed chess, it gave me something. Like it helped me with that perfectionism. And it made me a bit faster, but definitely I can also see it had some negative side effects. So is the medicine just to lay off the speed chess for a while or completely? Or do you think training is, if I do proper training, I can do some speed chess?
Yeah, I think that's right. Like if you really do the hard work, then you can reward yourself with some speed chess. That's allowed. That's allowed.
Look at it as a reward and not
Exactly, like a reward. Do some blitz.
So it's like if I do my workouts and eat healthy, I can have some candy on Saturdays, kind of
Exactly, right?
mentality.
Yeah, I'm not gonna like limit yourself. I don't believe in this, very harsh
No.
training regimen and so on. I mean, we need to create some flexibility. Also, still, for everyone, even including me, I think it's very important to also do something that you like in chess, to find the motivation and joy, to engage in those activities that you actually find fun. Look at Morphy games or try to simulate Morphy style and so on. I mean, these are all good things if you like it. If you like blitz chess, yeah, for sure. There is no harm done.
Yeah,
for sure.
But I can't bring that blitz mentality into longer time controls.
Be aware of these mentalities as well. Just if you catch yourself, you also because you're good at the psychological triggers and so on. Like if you catch yourself in those moments, oh, I'm about to make this move, like here, for example. Like also, there's so much tension, like everything is hanging, everything can be captured. Like when you think about like tense moments, it looks like this, right? And those moments require more deeper calculation. Than some, random quiet endgame. You don't need to spend all this time. But here, of course, there are all the triggers for us to slow down. We have choices.
Yes.
So if you then find yourself in those moments, okay, I just want to take on f3. Then okay, remind yourself, catch yourself.
Yes.
And take more time.
So that is probably a lesson as well from this game.
For sure. Sure. Cool. Then we move to the next one. If there are no other questions.
No.
Yeah. Are there, by the way, are they following us? I mean, how many people are there? I have no idea. I can't see them.
I haven't checked, but we have people in chat, yeah. I can check.
Cool.
Let me check. Okay, so we have, this was a Sicilian game, or?
It's a Sicilian game that you're playing with white pieces. Yes. Closed Sicilian. It will actually be Vienna-ish, kind of, you get your Vienna structures.
Yes.
Well, close Sicilian in this case, of course, yeah. So it resembles Vienna in a way that you play a 4 as well. And you get yourself some structure that you know. interesting because last week we looked at some bishop b5 ideas. Remember, like bishop b5, d3 kind of structures, and you get this pawn chain on the king side, and
oh yeah,
you
I remember this game. I got myself into some trouble in the opening, actually.
okay. So now you're stopping b5 by playing a4. Logical, by the way. Space gaining move. You don't want to allow b5 in this position, most likely, which is probably logical.
Because I want my bishop on c4.
Yes. Also, if they go b5, sometimes they can drive the knight with b4 and so on. It can get annoying. So
Yeah.
it makes sense. Bishop g4, pin that knight, h3. Remember, we were talking about this impulsive h3s last week?
Yes.
Remember that discussion?
Yes.
In this case, I think it's allowed because there is no pressure on the pawn on d4. You know, if this actually brought some threat on the pawn on d4, let's say, then this will be bad. But here, I think it's a good question to ask. You know, ask a question to the bishop and take the bishop pair if it's allowed. Having said that, this will also cost us a tempo. You know, now you queen on f3, knight d4 will cost us tempo again. Not that it's a terrible move, of course. Knight can be chased away by knight e2 later on. But with best play, black can also equalize, let's say. If they can get the pieces out slowly, black is fine in this position. But you have the bishop pair. That's a long-term advantage for white as well.
But I was spending a lot of time here, actually, before playing bishop e2, because I was worried about the queen check. And and what I was looking at was, okay,
queen
here.
h4 checks.
Yes. So I was, but I eventually played knight e2, and my opponent didn't play the queen check because, okay, so I was looking at knight e2, queen h4, g3, and then knight f3 with a check, and then king f2, and then queen and knight is hanging, but it wasn't still clear to me how that would turn out.
That line, by the way. Yeah, because many of us, I mean, many players would stop here. Yeah, the queen is hanging, I'm fine. But then you saw one play deeper, knight f3 check, king f2 on the move, of course. And now things are hanging.
Yes.
Yeah, things are hanging. Queen h5, again, queens are the worst defenders.
Yes, I also looked, I looked at this as well. And then I think you can just do g4.
Exactly, g4, chase the queen.
But what happens now if they go queen h4? You play knight g3, no?
No, give yourself choices.
I guess also king g2.
Yes, but there is one more. There is one more candidate.
One more.
Ask yourself.
King e3.
King e3, okay. Well, you're really like Morphy, so yeah. You're really like Morphy. You say no.
No, I just take the knight. Sorry.
Yes,
just take the knight.
You say no to material today for some reason. You know, you want to win games by not grabbing free material. That's interesting.
Oh my god.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's what this move does, by the way. Yeah, like always ask yourself, right? Like two threats. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right? You can't pay them both. Well,
yeah.
I take your knight, and the king is strong. As Steinitz says, yeah, the king can take care of itself.
Yeah.
Because nobody can attack the king on f3.
Yeah.
So it's good calculation. Nice.
Yeah, but it was a bit. It got a bit blurry when I got after the knight f3. It got a bit blurry, but okay.
Yeah, but you force yourself to see king f2, which is very good.
Yeah.
And by the way, yeah, in terms of my course goals, right? The opponent's last move, yes, queen h4 is coming now. Yeah. What would they play if I don't make a move right now? That's a key question. So you must do something against this threat. So all your moves must revolve around this threat of queen h4. Maybe g3 is a candidate too, you know, because your queen covers here. There is no knight f3 check. Maybe, yeah. Bishop g2, castle short. That might be a plan as well for white in those positions. But you must stop this for sure. Like it all boils down to it.
Yeah. So you think knight e2 was bad?
I think knight e2 is fine in a way that you're challenging black's best piece too. Right? Like, because that knight doesn't do much on c3. Doesn't really belong on c3 in this position in the long run. So it's sort of in your plans as well, yeah, to move the knight to e2 at some point.
I just find that knight so annoying when it arrives on d4.
Yeah. Yes. So definitely it's in your cards. It's your interest to challenge that knight.
But you think g3 was better?
g3 Probably I would play g3 because I think I have time, because I have time to get this bishop g2 and castle short thing. If I do so, the bishop will be also happy. Just think about that, right? It will be an unopposed bishop on this long diagonal, fianchetto. At some point, I can also play e5 potentially to activate it. So also covers my king and so on and so on. I would like to get that position as white for sure.
Because that is probably okay. What about h4? Someone is saying. Yeah, I think g3. I wouldn't have looked at that, John, because of I would feel like, oh, that's scary for my king, And
Yeah,
Chat is
but
asking what about. Chat is also
yeah.
asking what about
H4 stops queen h4, but what's your bigger plan? I mean, if the sole purpose of playing h4 is to stop queen h4, there's something wrong with this, right? Like, how does this move connect to your general ideas in the opening? Like, what's your game plan? How does it contribute to your scheme of things? Because knight e2 contributes. You're challenging the best placed piece on d4. This contributes to our bigger plan. Yes, I want to get this bishop here and castle short, right? You always search for multi-purpose moves in chess. So you must always connect the threat with something multi-purpose that also improves your position.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the bishop is happy on this long diagonal. That's what I'm speaking to my bishop. I mean,
g3.
because are you going to place it here? No, it does nothing on this diagonal.
No,
right?
You're right. And you're not worried about the king at all.
I mean, no. Nobody can attack the king, right? Look, how can this be exploited, the king on e1? Just come back to your senses and logically tell yourself how this can be attacked by the black pieces.
I just think like down the line, I don't know, they can just.
But it's going to castle
pawns.
short, like in two moves, right? It will be here on g1, maybe on h2 later on. It's safe. It's safe. Your space advantage protects your king. That's also one thing that once you push the pawns in the opening like this, you have all the space. And that extra space is actually protecting your king on the king side. Yeah? Because you gain all this terrain. You don't give all the central terrain to the opponent's pieces to use to attack your king.
Yes.
So it's actually quite safe. It will be quite safe in this position.
So you're saying the space protects the king because it's kind of like a wall that stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I know you wrote good things about space and all these square control and so on in your courses. So you can even logically break it down to the why part. How is that saving our king? How is that, even if you just make a couple of moves, for example, like, okay, you just castle short, right? Let's say king h2. Like, is this king safe or unsafe? How do you decide? It looks like, you pushed all the pawns on the king's side. It must be unsafe. But how? How can they exploit the king on h2? Just look, all these pawns are taking away all the space from the black pieces. Which is impossible.
h5, h4.
h5, h4, okay. Now you'll refute my concept. h5, h4, alpha 0 style. I hear you. And if you play h4 yourself, they will go knight g4, yeah? That's the entire point.
Yeah.
Having said that, even here the king is probably quite safe. But even allowing h4 and playing g4 myself is logical. Like, for example, okay, I go g4. What's your move? What's your move? My king is still fine.
Yeah. I see
slowly
your
get
point.
the bishop out. Right? Like, slowly I'll just get my pieces out.
And all the pawn breaks on the king side just opens our rook.
Yes, also that as well.
Or
I
bishop.
can even push g5 myself at some point. Yeah, to drive your knight backwards potentially. Yeah, I can push g5 myself. Drive your knight later on with maybe such moves and c3 and so on. I don't even need to, exchange my knight for your knight. I can choose other ways to play c3 later on. And I'm happy as white. Well, maybe what I'm saying isn't correct. We should check with Stockfish what it says. Okay, +1 almost for white.
Yeah, and that is because of the space, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like all this extra space. Also bishop pair, unopposed bishop here, right? Unopposed bishop with some potential of activating later on.
Yes.
With moves like e4. It has potential for sure.
Yes. I think, by the way, this game is a really good example of a situation I find myself in a lot, where I get a good position, and then my opponent is just better at positional play than me. So they just slowly build on their position, and mine just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And that happens
that's exactly why we should spend some time on this game, because I even prepared some positions for you.
And even the end game, I didn't understand anything.
Oh yeah.
I did not understand the middle game and not understand the end game.
Yep. So there's some end game work we must do from this game.
So
Great, by the way.
I think one of the problems I can get into in the Grand Prix, that is when I don't get what I usually get out of the opening. And then I don't know what to do because I don't have any of those. You remember we talked about it last time that I feel like I have this rinse and repeat ideas in this
Right,
opening, like the
right, right, right.
queen e1, queen h4, all of this f5. Like
Yeah.
nothing of this applies here. So then I'm kind of on my own and I don't know what to do.
Then you play chess. Exactly. And you start
Yeah.
playing chess. Yeah, but that's why chess is complex because there's so many dimensions to get better, you know? And around your level, to reach the next level like 1800, that was also one of my conclusions in my series Climb on YouTube when I looked at hundreds of games on different levels.
Yeah.
Yes, like rook end games are not perfect. Defending a good rook end game is quite bad around this level, and it gets really mature. Like it gets much better around 1800. So they can do it. You know, the next rating band can do it, which means it's not too over your head right now to start working on those as well. You know, handling rook end games, how to play for activity in rook end games, how
So
to defend properly.
so
Yeah.
I think I need some psychological help there because I find Rukken games so boring. I want to do. I even want to clean my house before I study Rukken games.
Okay, that's a good excuse, yeah, to keep your house clean. Like, I can give you some rook and game positions, and then you can start cleaning the house, and then
Yes.
come back to it.
Oh,
That's good.
I don't know. I feel like if you love chess, you should kind of love everything. It makes me feel a bit bad to say it, but I think it's so boring. I don't know what to do. But maybe it is because I don't understand it, and things you don't understand are probably boring. So
Yes, it's actually one of the most richest and most beautiful part of chess, most complex as well, very
yeah,
complex. You know, it's the realm that also the most frequent endgame type in chess. You'll see them a lot. That's why it
yeah,
becomes relevant around this level because you know, because in the previous levels, people hang pieces, the games are over in the middle game.
yeah,
They don't
yeah,
reach endgames. At your level, endgames are slowly becoming more and more relevant. You'll see them more, and you'll mostly see rook endgames. Statistically, they are the most biggest endgame types, most frequent. So you should at least have some basic understanding, and not I'm not talking about theoretical knowledge on the rook endgames.
I
Maybe
know.
besides
I
Lucena
know a
and so on.
few things like the. I don't know what it's called. I don't remember what's called in English, but
Lucena and Tildor, you know,
third
those two.
rank defense or sixth rank defense. We call that in Norwegian. I know that one, and then I know the Lucena position, and then I just know some standard things like the rook should go behind the pawn that tries to
Yes,
promote, those types of
yes,
things. But
yeah. Yes, sixth rank defense is also called Fildor
yeah,
defense, and you also know Lucena, which are the golden, of course, when it comes to rook and games. And then we are talking about principled play. I even made a YouTube video about this, by the way, when you saw it. It's called "You're Probably Misusing Your Rooks. Here is the right way." That got great feedback from people. I even prepared some positions from that video for you today. I will test you
oh,
with some positions.
cool.
Yes,
Okay, okay. I'll let you. I'll
it's
let
beautiful.
you progress.
Yes,
Okay.
it's so beautiful because I think it's quite beautiful, Solveig, to spend some time here because it really shows us, you know, the dimension of quality and material
Yeah,
in chess. You know, the material. You're like Morphe. You should like rook end games because you can save so many rook end games despite being pawn, two pawns, sometimes three pawns down. If
yeah,
you play actively, if you feel the energy of your rook, if you want to make it happy,
yeah.
then you can save so many bad end games, and that gives you great joy. I still remember some classical games which I managed to save with the rook end game despite being two pawns down. This gave me the biggest joy, actually. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Once you really
Okay.
play actively, give your best, and get the results. It's beautiful.
Okay, when you frame it like that,
Yeah,
I can feel some sense of excitement. So maybe if you just
yes,
continue talking about awakening the power of the rook, maybe I'll get interested.
yes. Feel
But
the energy, feel their power.
I feel like this position right here, here
Yeah.
I was happy. I felt like okay, I have the bishop pair. This should probably be good, but very soon I just feel like everything starts to crumble, and I can't find a single plan.
Yes. By the way, we can already discuss here, like it's let's say it's a symmetrical pawn formation. There are still all the pawns on the board, by the way. Strange, right?
Yes, I hate
But
these
the
types
game,
of positions where there's
yeah,
all the pawns are on the board. I don't
right.
understand what to do.
Interesting. You like more open games, right? You like
Yeah.
open games, mostly. Yeah,
I guess the
yeah,
plan here maybe is to open the position since I have the bishop pair.
for sure.
So I think
That's a long-term plan.
that's why I want to play King G1 and then F5. I was hoping just to open a bit, but that was the only plan I could
Yes,
find.
but King G1 is already a mistake to my mind. Can you explain to me why, Solveig?
Because we're in the end game, so I should
Exactly. You're in the
centralize
end game
it.
and the king is going to Siberia with this move, right?
Yes, so maybe King
It's not a
E3.
principal move. Yeah, like either king e3 or something else, but keep it in the center. Like use your king
Yes.
as an active force.
Yes.
Use it because it will cost you tempo later on. The king on
Yeah.
g1,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's already the first biggest lesson from this, by the way.
Yeah.
So important and
Yeah.
teachable. This moment.
Yeah.
It's beautiful that you made this mistake because there's some misconception still that's going on.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, let's say, the first inaccuracy. By the way, I like a5 because you're clamping down on the pawn on the
I actually was wondering when I played it if you would like that move or not. So I was
love
wondering.
it. I love a5. I love a5. What you're doing is that you're freezing the pawn as a weakness on
Yes.
d7, right? That becomes a weakness. Maybe we'll attack it like this later on, by the way. Or maybe even the bishop can touch that pawn later on with moves like this. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful positional move that you played with
But
a5.
it doesn't really hang together with King G1. I can see that.
It doesn't really hang together with King G1.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Again, in terms of happiness, the king is unhappy that he went to G1, right? You sort of let down your king in this position. B5, very good that you took on B6. This was one of your ideas, of course. Now this is the clear target on A6. Having said that, Black wants to get rid of the backward pawn with moves like A5, A4. So what should I play? That's my question to you. What is that beautiful positional move?
Rook A5?
That's it. Rook A5. Bam. Very nice move. Very nice
Oh,
multi-purpose
nice.
prophylactic move as well. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Right? You're freezing that pawn is a clear weakness. You're anticipating, maybe even preparing later on moves like this. Rook A1 to double
But
on
what
the
about
A4.
bishop D8?
Bishop D8, okay, will take time, right? To even hit the rook, basically. And you can, of course, you should be careful. Maybe there are some, tricks like this. Yeah, you should be careful, of course, yeah? I assume that we will manage to safeguard against those tricks, and we'll slowly consolidate our position. Maybe even there are moves like d4.
D4?
Maybe d4, but d4, yeah, d4 definitely attacks the pawn on a6. That's a thought for sure. That's a thought. But it's somehow too tactical to my mind. Yeah,
Yes.
maybe there are some easier solutions.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't like it even after. Yeah, I don't like.
Yeah, because even if they attack the rook like that, you can even gain tempo. Maybe rook a2 even. Yeah, it looks boring and slow maybe. But the same thing. Your knight has to move right now, and my game plan is to simply prepare rook a1. Right? It's actually kind of logical. Like, okay, bishop e3 for example, and rook a1. It's coming. It's coming. You're happy because you gave yourself a clear target on a6. You will attack it with your pieces.
Oh,
everything
I get a bit annoyed because, I struggle so much to find a plan in this position. And when you explain it, it just sounds so obvious. And I'm just like, why did I not think of these things? It seems so obvious.
No, you should not be too harsh on yourself. No, I mean, everything is easier in hindsight, of course, yeah? And it's not even guaranteed that I will find this move like in a classic game in 5 seconds, yeah? Like, don't get me wrong. So it's also a pattern-based thing because, look, that's the recent transformation, yeah? The pawn disappears on a5. And it's also about knowing the positional threat of a5, a4, which was not so given maybe, yeah? That you didn't see actually that Black wants to play a5, a4 here.
Yeah, that pawn became annoying, so...
Yes, that pawn actually lost us the game in some sense.
Yeah.
So that's why it was very important to stop it on its tracks.
Yeah.
Which actually connects to your entire a5 plan, right? It's like a Magnus Carlsen like a movie. What is this move? Okay, clamp, b7 is now loose, but also the second point is, yes, you will even make moves like this eventually.
I'm gonna have to disappoint you because my reason for playing that move was not so refined. I was just trying to be annoying because I thought, where do they want to put their knight?
You can make the right move for the wrong reason in chess, and that's how you get lucky in my book. Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, in some sense, you also stop knight b6, of course. which
Yeah,
was not a good move at all.
but
Yeah,
it's not. They can get that out somehow.
yeah,
But
yeah.
okay,
But maybe some part of your brain understood deeper points of this move. You know, don't
we
don't
can
be harsh on
only
yourself.
hope.
Yeah,
But
maybe. Yeah,
yeah, making that pawn weak. Um,
very
I
important.
am hoping I was thinking about that too, but I didn't see b5. That was not in my mind at all, actually. So
Ah, that they could go b5 anyway in this
I
position.
didn't think about it. So
Uh-huh.
I was
Okay.
even unsure if taking that was good with en passant, but then I thought it has to
Yes.
be good because I can't have those pawns together
Exactly.
starting to go down. They're getting too much space. I didn't like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned that you want to generally open up the game for your bishops, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, some pawns are traded, it becomes more open, and even this becomes a clear target. The rook gets happy, right? Like you just play it without much calculation. Just positionally, you just
But
play it
that
and take it from there.
rook a5 move is pretty cool.
It's a
We
beautiful plan,
have
yeah.
a new chatter who's asking who is this game between. This is one of my games actually, so Jan is just helping me look at it.
Yes.
All the yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay.
looks like a Karpov game or Carlsen game, but yeah, like all the positional finesses, like a5 and so on. But here, yes, the biggest problem was King G1. So right,
Yeah,
this was
here it
always the first
becomes
time,
very clear. This is not Karpov or
right?
Magnus
Like, yeah,
Carlsen.
maybe you thought the king can get mated in the center of the board, but again, black has no manpower to checkmate your king in the center
Yeah.
of the board here. Yeah, so it's just
Yeah.
you don't need to move it to G1.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I
Yeah,
will definitely. That was yeah. I learned something from that. Yeah.
right. So here, F5 is also slightly strange to my mind, but I think I will let you explain. Why did you play the move F5 here? What was the point?
No, I was hoping they would take, and I can take back with the rook and just open the position more. But then, when they played bishop e5, then I realized that was a mistake because I don't actually want to take on e6 because that just opens their rook. So I understood that was probably not the idea. But then, yeah, I didn't see bishop e5, and that was a very annoying move.
Yes, your very pawn move is giving this
Yes.
e5 square for the bishop, right? Like
Yes.
the drawback of our own pawn moves and so on, which are very committal, of course. So having said that, there's also some good sides about this move. Like, don't get me wrong, yeah? Even the bishop gets more active, maybe the rook gets happy, and maybe actually your main point is to take and bishop g4. Yeah, you just create a weakness on e6, let's say, and you will attack it with moves like this potentially. So that's also one of the thoughts actually behind the move f5.
And you also
Which
have
is probably not terrible.
you have a question from chat as well. I was wondering,
Yeah.
is G4 a bad idea? Chat is asking.
G4 is fine. G4 is not bad. I guess your main point is to gain space, right, with G5 and bury that bishop with maybe later on clamp with F5 and so on.
Yeah.
If you can play G5 on the next turn, I think I would take it for sure. I would take it. But I guess black can consider some moves, maybe H6 and so on, yeah, to make it a little bit more difficult for you to play G5 because now they will have a bishop on E5 and so on and so on. But even this is probably playable for white. Why not? Yeah. So G4 also is logical in that sense to clamp
what
on the
would
king
you
side.
play?
I'm not sure. I'm not thinking actually with you because now this is to my mind. This is coming. This is coming, and they will play a3 in two moves and to activate the bishop like that. So
Yeah.
I try to find a smart way to stop that plan actually. So all my game plan is now about this, the opponent's idea. How do I stop all this? Maybe you can't. Maybe you can't. Right? Because it's too late for rook a5 now. You cannot play b3 either because that's hanging. So maybe then, yeah, if it's not stoppable, then I also understand you that we should play something on the king side, create our game on the king side.
Yeah,
So
I
potentially g4.
couldn't really
Yeah.
find any solution to that. So yeah.
Maybe bishop f3, hinting at e5. Let's claim that the bishop improves, right?
Yeah,
Because now
I
it is
was
on this way.
looking at that as well. I think yeah, that is definitely much better.
That's a move. That's a move. That improves the bishop for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there is some potential here. Because if the bishop has to draw back just to avoid e5 so they can do d5 against this, then we're happy, yeah, because the bishop doesn't do much on e7. So, but maybe they can go rook a7 to avoid this, and yeah, the game continues, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Stockfish says, by the way. I mean, my hunch is that better for white, but not so clear. Yeah, 0.5 says Stockfish. Not a big deal, small advantage, but like you see moves like rook a2, for example, as the best for white. Like It needs some unpacking, you know, like bishop e3. Okay, that's logical. Apparently, that's not a big deal because of e5 again. Like it becomes very concrete, like very quickly, very concrete.
Yeah.
Because if they take twice, I guess bishop takes c5 is the main point. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the main point of bishop e3, by the way. You actually prepare the move e5 to weaken that pawn. Yeah, to activate your bishops.
Yeah.
So like move by move, you improve your bishops, hint at some e5s, and otherwise just double up your rooks like that to make it more difficult for black to push a4, a3 in the speech.
I guess the problem was that I allowed them to push the a pawn.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that was a great distractive force for us, yeah, because that
Yeah.
pawn became huge on the queen side. While you were doing some play on the king side, it already came to a3 here. Yeah. You can even take on e6 first just to, you know, strengthen this move a little bit. Although, oh wait, what am I talking about? There's bishop h2 check here because you just created a loose piece on f1. Yep. You have to be careful. I see. So maybe that's why you play bishop g4 first, which is logical.
Yeah.
Takes, bishop f5. Yeah, I mean, in some sense, you open the f file. The bishop is improved slightly as well on f5, but it has no real targets on f5 in some sense, right? It just doesn't do much. And now a3 is coming. That's the most annoying part for us. A3 is coming, and they are going to break our pawn chain over here. It's not so easy at all, yeah, to even stop that.
Yeah, I became aware of that c3 pawn too late. It was around here I started to realize I was going to drop a pawn.
Exactly. And that's why, you know, knowing those positional patterns will, just like tactical patterns, you will start seeing those things like relatively early on, you know, like the moment they play a4, you should, just like in my course, you know, positional threats.
Yes.
Why do they play the move? What would they play if it's their turn again, you know? Like that's what we focus on. That's the recent change in the position. The pawn came to a4. Obviously, the next move can be a3. Is it dangerous for me? You know what's going on?
I saw pawn a3, but I didn't. I forgot about what happens what happens with my c3 pawn, and even bishop e5 I didn't see, which is bad. So, but my opponent is doing a good job of teaching me things here. I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. Giving us good lessons. That's always well taken. But yes, that's a, let's say, deeper positional concept for you right now, maybe at this stage. So why? Yeah, this. But it's actually quite logical too, you know, using pawns to break certain pawn structures.
Yes.
It's called destroying a pawn chain by attacking the base of the pawn chain.
Yes.
It was Nimzowitsch who first mentioned this in his book, My System, yeah? Attacking the base of the pawn chain to activate other pieces and destroy certain pawn structures. That's what they are doing exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's the only major source of counterplay for black on the queen side too. You know, they have no other major idea but a3. There is nothing else. And if you could stop that, you know, then you could stabilize the position. But that's already, you know, like it comes down to technique of the good two bishops, play slowly, prophylactically, you know, stopping the opponent's needless counterplay. When it comes to technique in chess, you talk about basically stopping counterplay, preventing counterplay, and slowly, gradually winning those games. That will, of course, not easy at all, even for grandmasters.
I actually remember now why I played the bishop g4. I think it was because I wanted to try and trade the dark squared bishops because their bishop is so strong. So I wanted to do like bishop f4.
Okay, bishop f4 is your idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that was why I
The
played.
The problem is you're now giving away the bishop pair. Yeah.
Yes.
Because bishop pair is an advantage in chess. So usually you don't want to not do that. Yeah. Usually you want to preserve the bishop pair. Because if you go for this exchange, there's also a scenario where this bishop will be a colorblind piece, will be a bad bishop left on the board.
Yeah.
And later that knight can also use some good squares, like dark squares, yeah?
Yeah.
That's the only problem. You look at this bishop as a great piece, I challenge you. Maybe you can play bishop e3 and d4 at some point and chase that piece, right? Why are you so pessimistic? Because it's not an outpost on e5. I can play d4 at some point as white. Yeah, bishop e3 maybe, and d4. Why not? That also serves your plan.
Because the knight becomes...
the knight becomes happy on c4. That's what you think. Yeah. But it's always give and take in chess, right? Like d4 is desirable for white. If you can achieve these two moves, it's desirable. You open up the game as well further for your bishops and so on.
Yes, I understand your point. Well, I'm learning a lot from this game, more than the others.
We're talking about today. This game is totally about finesse.
I think it also, I think also it is because my opponent is stronger.
Yeah. Ah, that's why maybe
they're
find those plans.
playing better.
Could be. That they are more equipped. Yeah, like seeing this entire plan, I think it was quite nice that he saw it. Yeah, because he's already forming a plan here, obviously, right? He just pushes
Yeah.
a5, pushes a4. He's following a certain scheme of plans, which means that he knows this pattern,
Yeah.
this pawn pattern. You know, it's like cheat sheet. Once you know those patterns, once they're stored in your long-term memory, just like Magnus Carlsen, chess becomes very easy in some sense. Like just appears to your brain
And
directly.
it's good that I'm learning about this too.
Yeah, I mean that's the basic difference, right, between super GMs and us. Like they simply store much more chess patterns in their long-term memories than us.
Is that a
Yeah.
minority attack, or is that do you need
In
more
some
than
sense,
one?
yes. In some sense, yes. I mean, in some sense, yes, because the minority attack in a way that they are pushing a single pawn against two pawns on the queen side to create a weakness. That's exactly what they are doing, right? Like they are by playing a3, they are inevitably creating a weakness on the queen side.
Yeah.
Or getting a concession, basically. Like breaking the pawn chain, exchanging those pawns, activating their pieces, and so on.
Yeah.
Yes. And see how they are using the weak pawn, let's say, yeah, this isolated pawn on the a file for this gain, so to speak. So it's quite desirable for black to achieve this. Yeah, nice. It's a nice positional game. A3 is on the board. Now you take.
Now the
issue
pawn
is that, of course,
drops.
the bishop gets active.
Yeah.
And the rook gets even more passive. I was thinking about rook b1 because, again, like I think it already starts here. Like the rook will be more active here on the b file, open file. And you choose the move rook a2 instead. Much more passive.
Why
Much
did
more
I
passive.
not play?
I wonder why, because the bishop already guards the pawn, right? Like, I mean, it's not hanging. So I wonder what stopped you from playing the most natural move, rook b1. I'm not sure.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not sure. Why did I
Maybe you
not
saw
play that?
something. I mean, not that they can attack the pawn twice directly, right? Because that's the most desirable. Maybe knight a4. Maybe the knight can later go to c3. But still, the rook is definitely preferable here than somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm not sure why I didn't play that.
Because it already sort of starts here, you know, like I want you to now focus on the rook's passivity and how passively you handle your rooks in its entire endgame.
Yeah.
That will be the biggest lesson from this, actually. Bishop d7 hits a knight. Bishop b4 check. Yeah, knight c3, definitely the knight improves. Rook c2, okay, that's understandable. Rook a7, and already here I think the bishop is running short of squares, yeah? Like it becomes... You see, that's why this plan wasn't so great, because the bishop is lacking targets over here. Like there's no pawn to attack. It's just hit by the rooks and so on. It would maybe be better to keep it here on f3. But now you play a move that involves calculation. Like, have you properly calculated this move? Because you're giving some choices to black. That's a counter-attacking move, which I like, by the way. You don't passively just move the bishop in this position. Maybe bishop c6 will be the best. But then again, you're inviting some moves like this.
Yeah.
Instead, you choose to play actively, like counter-attack. And you allow them to take this pawn, right?
I
That's a nice trick that
I
he has
didn't
applied.
see that. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I didn't see
Yeah,
it.
it's a good tactical shot from him. Because now the point is that if you take my knight, this is hanging anyway on d7.
Yeah.
So it's a general rule, when, let's say, you ignore a threat on your piece and go for a counterattack, you should slow down even more. Like that's a first signal for a critical moment. Because, like everything is hanging. Everything is hanging and definitely has several choices. To either ignore your threat or, gain a pawn before they grab the other piece that is hanging. So I wonder how much time you spent here, because this is not a move that just can be played easily.
I spent a lot of time, and I felt like I calculated it thoroughly, but then they just played the knight takes e4, and then I was very surprised, and I thought, oh no, I didn't see it.
Yes, it's all because there's already a problem on these two.
What's the medicine for that? Is it?
No, I think you just generally just slow down in counter-attacking moments.
But how do I see knight takes e4?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I guess using your logic in some sense, because what you're doing is
that's easy. Just to use your
use your logic. Like, I guess the point is that maybe it's like what you expect from your opponent to do, right? Because first of all, they can always take the bishop, and they will have this, let's say, equal trade in that position. But in some sense, you're giving them one full tempo before they can grab the bishop to do sort of whatever, yeah? Like this kamikaze move, basically. You're allowing some kamikazes. Like you're giving them green light. I mean, you will lose the piece anyway, so you can just lose it by grabbing a pawn in the process. right? Because that's what they are doing after all, which involves much more care.
I should probably look at revealing attacks, not only captures.
Revealing attacks too. Yes, revealing attacks too can be used.
I only looked at captures. That was the problem.
But isn't that sort of a capture in your CCT?
Oh,
in some sense?
it's a pawn, I don't care
It's
about
a pawn.
pawns.
They don't count. They're not people. They're just pawns. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, they are French revolutionaries, as you know, like pawns are important.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
So I actually, that's actually interesting. I looked at all but I didn't look at pawn captures because I don't care about pawns. Again, this is like causing trouble.
Yes, we are finding a clear, let's say, misconception in your mind, yeah, or maybe some sort of tendencies that you really, really misjudge the pawns, or you don't care about pawns too much, which is not always a bad thing, because I have so many students that are over materialistic. They overvalue their pawns. Like it's actually, there's also some merit to it, like Morphe style. But pawns are pawns after all.
Yeah.
Pawns are pawns after all.
Yes. And okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, knight takes e4.
Yes.
Was missed, and somehow we end up in this endgame, which is super interesting to my mind. But of course, it gets boring. It's just a rook endgame. You're down a pawn, and I was watching this game live actually. So then I thought, yeah, this will be interesting now to see the defensive technique. Not easy at all, by the way, because you also have this weak pawn on e4. That's an isolated pawn. And even this pawn, yeah, it can be attacked directly.
So right here, I felt super uncomfortable, super pessimistic, not sure at all what to do. And I felt like my rooks just ended up being super passive and I couldn't find out what to do. So I was really excited here actually to look at this with you to get the answer.
Yes, this is so beautiful. This portion itself can be a video on itself, can be, taught basically in some way, because this is so important at your level. Slowly as you move towards 1600, 1700, it will be even more relevant. So it will be actually, you're ready for this knowledge right now around here. It will also increase your self-confidence when it comes to how to play with rooks.
Yeah.
Generally, also when you're attacking, but also when you're defending, generally, rooks hate passivity. Rooks hate defending weak pawns, just like queens, They hate to be tied down in guarding, babysitting pawns in chess. Like even more so in the endgame state. So your first priority must be, how do I gain the maximum activity for all my rooks? Like this already looks quite okay. Although even here you can, let's say, target a weakness, let's say rook b6 or something. But this rook, for example, is the worst place rook. So my hunch is that how do I create instant counterplay? Like rook d1, for example, or maybe double up your rooks like this. Like make a move that activates this rook. And because look at the move that you made. I was shocked when I saw this, yeah? Like rook c1. Rook c1, okay, does nothing active. Rook c1 doesn't even attack the pawn. The pawn is already guarded on c5, right? So this is sort of a chess crime in a way that the rook hates to sit on c1. What's your bigger plan? It will be just frozen on the c1 square. I guess the only point of yours is that you're stopping the move d5, right? Like there must be some logic to this.
Yes, that was what
But you see, you're reacting to the opponent's ideas already here. You are this passive mindset, defensive mindset. That's the recipe for disaster in a rook endgame. In general,
it's very
especially when you're down the pawn.
It's very, very interesting actually that I have this complete opposite mindset in rook endgames from what I have in the middle game. It's like completely opposite. It must be tied to confidence, I think. I don't have any confidence here.
Yeah, we must talk about psychological issues as well, because I was very surprised, because I know your style. You like to attack, you like to activate, you like to give power to your pieces.
I need to find that in the rook endgames. Okay, I see what you're doing. I think it's working actually. It's getting me more interested in this rook endgames. If I can see how to be more.
It will be beautiful. It will be also give you so much more self-confidence. I know that,
Yeah.
It's great. We found some area that deserves clear deliberate practice. We realized some misconceptions in our game. That's beautiful. Many people never do that. So you should congratulate yourself that we found a clear area of improvement.
Yes.
Which is, by the way, very typical, as I told you. I looked at hundreds of games at this level. I was so surprised. Around 1500, around your level right now, that somehow people don't understand fully how rooks should be treated in the game,
Yeah.
Like, that's a norm to my mind as a coach, an exception, this way of playing rook end games. And for example, like any move but rook c1, like rook d1 is fine, rook
Yes.
b7, rook b6 is fine. Like these are all fighting moves. Maybe even rook a1 and you just want to push, support your pawn, you do something active in this position. But not
Yes.
rook c1, not rook c1.
Chat is asking, can we play rook d1 targeting the backward pawn and maybe
Yes.
rook b6 doubling up on it?
Exactly. You want to attack
Yeah.
targets. That's one
Yeah.
way to activate your pieces, right? By attacking a target, you make them happy. Yes, rook
Yes.
b1. A candidate for sure. But you
Okay,
see,
I'm learning a lot already. I'm very.
yes,
I feel like you clocked something here.
I think
Yeah.
in terms of, student is ready for this knowledge, I think you're ready for this knowledge right now. I think we are
Yes.
catching you in the right time in your chess journey and development.
Yeah.
And we are giving you skill that is high chance of occurrence in your games because of the frequency. And I think this will be beautiful because, okay, they play some moves, but you see what you're doing? This is a true chess crime because this rook was on open file, right? This rook was your only happy rook. You're
Yes.
tying down the rook. You're paralyzing your rook. The rook is crying on c2. Please feel the cries, tears dropping from this rook on c2, right?
Yeah.
Like both rooks are crying right now
Yeah.
as a result of these two moves. Something is very strange.
Yes.
Something is very strange. And now, because that's the way to improve in its positional chess. You should really, really feel the misery of the piece. Feel the cry. That's a beautiful way to improve and treat them better next time.
Yeah.
They hate to be placed like this.
Okay. I'm sorry, rooks.
Yes. Next time, Solveig will treat you much better, Brooks. Don't cry. Don't cry. Future is bright for you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
And suddenly, they're attacking, right? They are playing with an attacking rook. They are happy. That rook is very
And
happy.
I'm even defending it sideways, which is another crime.
Yes. Also, I mean, what else, right? Because exactly, yeah, you could even choose exactly as you said. You can even go back here and let's say be more active, but you choose sideways defense, which is also a crime. Which is also a crime.
And I even know that is a crime, but
Yeah. So,
but I'm still doing it.
unfortunately, there's not like a course on Chessable that trains only these kind of things, like choose between passive or active treatment, like very clean puzzles like this. This would be a great puzzle, yeah? Around here, for example, like one move attacks something, the other move does something like that, which one you choose. That would be a great course in itself to fix these processes.
Yeah, I think that would be a hit. I think you should write down that idea.
No, but I'm too busy, I have like 10,000 course ideas. I mean, I have to copy myself. I have to copy myself. But that's a thought, yeah, for sure. By the way, that's how I create my courses. Like they always emerge with my work with my students, Like it emerged organically, basically, over time.
Yes.
And that's why they're hits. King f7? Okay, well,
or
let's see how we did.
Maybe you can train me a lot in these things, and then I can make it.
Oh yes, let's do it that way, yeah. So you give me so many crimes, and then I will teach you the right way, and then you'll create a course around this.
Yes.
Now we made a deal. Okay, that was the first start of our beautiful, let's say, future project of Solveig teaches how to handle rooks, so they don't cry.
But right now, don't take my tips on that.
Yes, right now, and that will be the story, of course. Yeah, the first page. Like everything started on the 8th of April when I committed so many crimes, and then I learned my lesson. Yes.
Yeah.
Rook a4, but look how he's playing. Beautiful activation.
Yeah, I'm playing so well, and it's like even when I'm playing this myself, I'm just sitting there thinking they know exactly what they're doing, and I'm just fumbling in the dark here.
Yep. But does it involve 10-ply calculation? No, right? They are finding those moves not by calculating, by having certain chess vision, by knowing how to make their rooks happy. They find these moves.
And even
this
now,
doesn't involve any calculation.
And even now, I'm annoyed I played that king g1 move.
Right? The king could be on e3 like already from the beginning.
Yeah.
But we just moved to g1 first, and now we just go back.
Yeah.
So beautiful game, I love these games. Not that you won or lost. Maybe you won in the end. Probably you won. It's not, I mean, we're not doing it for that. We are learning the right lessons from those mistakes.
Yes.
So many teachable moments from this game. So this is a beautiful game.
It is.
Yeah. Rook a3. Again, they are happy rooks attacking, passive rooks defending.
Yeah.
And even their king is more active. And they have an extra pawn.
Yeah.
So that's why if you ask Stockfish, I think black is winning, yeah? Yes. Minus 3.4 you get from Stockfish. But that's a story. You have to explain it using words. Why is black winning? Yeah, because of all these factors.
And material.
Rook b7. Yes. King f3. Rook b1, logical. g4. I guess the pawn can be attacked later on. You want to push it. You want to make it more difficult to play f5. But the problem is we have no active means in this position. Yeah, we have no active cards anymore.
No,
We
it's
are just
terrible. Like, what do you even do? You can't do anything.
it's terrible, right? Like I can't even activate them anymore. They're like
Oh,
forever crying. They're like forever depressed in this position. There's like
yeah,
there's no hope.
it's awful.
Yeah. Good that you noticed the awfulness because that's the first step for the cure. Rook g1, king h2. The king went back to Siberia again. Rook b1. Yes.
Siberia.
Right? Like this is coming now.
Yeah.
Rook c d3. And they blundered. Oh boy.
Boy, did I not. I did not deserve this. They did not deserve
No,
that.
this is not deserved at all. No, no.
I just thought, I was just like,
No.
what are they doing?
Yeah, they got complacent, right? Because they're improving move by move.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, this, she has no idea what she's doing.
There's
She
no
can
idea.
just. And then they get
Okay.
hubris, and then they.
They get hubris.
lose.
Indeed. Hubris is the word, yes. They get hubris and they lose the rook. Yeah. One moment of lapse of concentration, and then they lost.
What a cruel game. But
What a
but the
cool
thing
game,
is,
right?
I was still not entirely confident here because.
Yeah, because the rooks are so active. I mean, the rook is still active. There's some good pawns. You'd need some effort to convert. But I like rook f5. Finally, you're attacking. Yeah, finally you're
Yeah,
finding a
but that
target.
is because now I have confidence again.
Nice. You gain the confidence again because you're look up in this position.
Yeah, so
That's
once
why.
the confidence is back, you get active.
Oh, that's so amazing. Yes. The moment you're confident again, you play good chess. You make your rooks happy in this
Yes.
position.
Then I play
Yes.
like I play in the middle game. But when I feel like I don't know what's going on, then I become very passive and timid. Yeah, probably.
Oh, yeah. That's such a beautiful thing we discovered as well.
Yes, because I
Keep it in
was
mind.
not aware I was that passive, but now that you're pointing it out, I can see
Yes.
it. So now,
I was
but
watching it
it's
live. I was watching it live. I was like, tomorrow will be a long day. You know, that's why I told you. Tomorrow, like, eat well, sleep well. Tomorrow will be a long day. That's why, it needs some deliberate practice here. Like, this was so nice. Rook f5, and slowly, I guess you want to do this.
Yeah.
Yes. And of course, this should be checked. And king h5 was nice. I saw this. Good calculation because the king doesn't get mated. It goes to g6. It actually wants to go to g6 because you find a target and you want to attack that target. Yeah, beautiful chess. Beautiful chess, king g6, and now the game is over. So this was a good conversion. Yes, and they resigned you.
Yeah. I didn't
Conversion.
deserve this. Well,
Yes.
I would say I deserve it because of the long-winded psychological torture that of being in a bad position for so long. If you look at it like that, maybe you deserve it.
I think so because it was not comfortable at all. Ever since they played a3, like you were sort of in a state of uncertainty, a little bit shocked. Like things are collapsing on the queen side. You were not expecting this, right? It was just some sort of a shocker. Like they get all the activations and now your rook is. I think that's already the first step, by the way. Yes, because you see, things went in the wrong directions. Things are starting going south, and then you play a passive move like this already here. Like your reaction is already very passive in this position with rook a2. Like it already starts here because this was not expected by you. Like this entire a3 plan, and then comes the first passive move. And then it just goes very passive from there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so this confidence thing I think is very important.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm definitely thinking about King G1.
Yeah.
King G1.
Early on.
I'm thinking
Let me go back
about.
there. Yep.
And then also the G3 structure that you showed me. I'm thinking about that too.
Yeah, for sure. Because the bishop is a good piece on this diagonal.
And the king can go to H2.
Yeah, fianchetto bishops defend their kings, right? So yeah, the king will be quite safe.
Yeah, and I know sometimes when you play the Grand Prix, if the opponent knows what they're doing, they will deny both bishop b5 and bishop c4, and then it's like, what are you gonna do with your bishop? And then I know there's some you can have some g3 ideas and fianchetto instead.
Yeah, for sure.
So okay, so that is something, and then I guess that rook a5 idea I'm thinking
Yes.
about. That was a
Deeper
very
positional pattern for
cool
sure.
move.
Yeah. A5 was good. Rook A5 was very good here.
And then also F5, creating that hole on E5. That was also a point.
Yes, it would be a chess crime if that became an outpost on E5. It
Yeah.
did not become an outpost because you can always play D4 later on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like a terrible chess crime. Yes, bishop B5 is there, but that can be chased away later on with moves like this.
Yeah.
So don't be too harsh on yourself about this.
No, okay.
Because I can also see some good sides of F5. You want to activate your pieces and so on and so on.
Okay.
So yeah, that was not like a
Um,
terrible move in some
No,
sense.
but all of this was probably unavoidable since I didn't find that rook a5 move, yeah? Or
Yeah, the moment you allow A5, A4, it becomes
yeah,
more tricky, to play this
yeah,
position with white.
yeah. So that
For
pawn
sure.
needs to be stopped. I think I will remember that next time because that was so annoying.
Yes.
And then it was that rook a2 move that was very weird. Just play it in the open file instead, and then
Yes.
also
That was big.
the counter attack where I didn't consider the pawn as a capture.
Exactly.
Oh
Yeah,
my god,
pawns
there's
are
so
not
many
people.
things. And then
Yeah. Yeah, here. Bishop B2. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And good that we
here
came to this weekend game. We learned
and
so many things.
here just rook b1 maybe, or rook
Again, I mean,
d1.
we can look at Stockfish, but I'm 100% sure all the moves it will give us will be active. Yeah, look at this. Rook b6 is the best move. Of course, it activates the rook. In all these moves, by the way, black is better. But white is, rook d1. Maybe even better than rook b6, yeah? Like Stockfish starts spitting out moves that are just active, activating all of our rooks from here.
Yeah.
And gives move like this, for example, rook b6. Activate. Play from here. Yeah, why not? They can't even play d5 because of back rank problem. So you might even
What
like,
about like c4? I was worried about.
I don't know, but you can even like the good thing is that you can even place your rook behind the pass pawn. Yeah, like that's the advantage
Yes,
of moving the rook up.
yes.
It comes with all the
Of
benefits as well.
course, of
Yeah,
course,
rook belong behind the pass pawns anyway. So
of
that's actually one way to stop the
course,
pawn too. To do this,
of course.
beautiful. Yeah,
Okay, I'm learning a lot
yeah,
actually.
this is great. Like
I'm
compare and
learning a
contrast
lot.
all these logical moves with the move with the plan you chose. Rook c1, rook c2. You know, like
Yeah, I should. Okay, I will. You
so
know,
reactionary.
these rooks.
Yeah.
Wait, just let them. I will take a picture of this.
Please, like this
Wait,
is
I will
something
take
that
a
you want to
picture of
avoid.
this.
Take a picture of this, like
Yes.
save it somewhere, like
Yeah.
never repeat this,
Yes.
or like draw some, tears, like dropping from the
Yes.
rook's faces.
Yes.
Like,
I will do that. Like literally, I'm gonna do that. Okay.
yeah,
But you know
then it
what?
will be the color of your future course.
I usually cry when I have to enter a rook endgame. But you know what? Now I'm actually a bit eager to get a rook endgame so I
Yes.
can try to get that aggressive and active Solveig in the rook endgame.
Well, I will make your task easier. I prepared some positions for you about this, fixing this.
Rook
Okay?
c1.
Yes. So white's last move was rook b7. They're attacking the pawn on b6. Should we babysit with rook a6 or should we do something else?
Rook c1.
Rook c8 is the best move
No,
indeed.
c8, sorry. Yeah.
Rook c8 is the best move indeed. Beautiful
Yeah.
intuition, right? Like they say goodbye to the open file and you take it directly. You exploit the positional drawback of the move and you ditch the pawn and go activate. That's it. This doesn't require calculation, by the way. You just play it. And you refuse it out of principle. This is a chess crime, yeah? Double question mark. Rook a6. Again,
Yeah.
crying.
Yeah.
The rook is crying, no
Yeah.
activity whatsoever, tied down forever on the pawn. Terrible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They hate this. They hate this. So ditch the pawn, activate. And even like here, you can check.
Chat
You
is
can play h5.
writing. Okay.
You can create a luft. You can play knight f6, knight g4. It's actually black who is slightly better in this position. It's actually black who is slightly better because of all these ideas. Knight g4, knight e4, knight d2. That knight will become a hero very, very soon. And active rook. Yeah? Active rook, basically. That's what it takes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But there's no choice anyway for black. So what do? Like you either get this rook to a beautiful spot or you just babysit the pawn. Like you must do something. You
So
play it out of principle.
Wizard fella is writing, how about rook to c4, then rook d1, then try pushing a pawn? My head hurts now.
Rook c4 here or what? What do you mean? Rook
Yeah.
c4?
Yeah.
But what does it do? Rook
Chat
c4.
is suggesting, I don't know, maybe they wanna push a4. No, I think the idea is just rook c1, and then you have pinned the knight to the king.
Yeah.
Then
That itself is a good thing for us because they will they will need to spend some time to unpin themselves.
yeah,
And meanwhile,
then
our
you,
piece will come.
activate the
Maybe even
knight
this.
and
Yeah. Even like moves like this later on, once you get the king to h7. That's the best thing that you have anyway. I'm not sure what Stockfish says, but black is look at this.
doesn't
0,
that
0,
hang
0,
the
0, 0.
knight?
Black is full compensation for the pawn right now because of piece activity. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
And then you see moves like this, like
So,
king
but
f8,
this is also very weird, you know? Another thing I realized?
Yeah.
Because I don't care about pawns in the middle game. Why am I so obsessed about defending pawns in the rook? Like, it's like a switching personality.
It's strange, right? It's strange. Yeah.
I'm very happy you made me aware of this, because now I can stop doing it.
Yeah, obviously in the end game, the value of pawns in general goes slightly higher, especially passed pawns, right? Like in terms of full like chess principles and so on. Yes, I mean the value of a passed pawn goes higher in the end game. They become more valuable. But activity-wise, rooks love activity, and those pawns can be ditched. Should be
it's
ditched.
just like I'm having a awakening now. I don't know why I am abandoning my style when my style is actually needed.
Exactly, like your Solveig style is this, yeah? Just ditch the pawn and activate. That's the style.
I'm very
That's
happy
how
you
you
clocked
play in
this.
your game. I mean, you even said no to the central pawn, God's sake, for like 4 moves, right? In the opening.
Yes.
Like they were giving you the pawn on e4 and you did not even look at that pawn. Like, oh, that's an irrelevant pawn. Let me get my pieces out. Yes. More of that mindset, please, when it comes to handling your rook.
Thank you so much for making me aware of this.
That's what you want. That's what you want. Like even here, for example, like this probably you know, by the way. Like you're down a pawn in the rook endgame.
Yeah, you want to do rook d2 and then rook a2.
Exactly. Yeah, this is everything Dinzovic. We want to, or Tarash. We want to get the rook behind the pass pawn.
Yeah.
That's the best way to defend those positions. Down the pawn, right? You're forcing this. That rook is terribly tied down, and you improve your king. Whatever, yeah.
I do actually. I do, even though I didn't apply it in my game. I do know that principle, but I don't know. I ended up babysitting sideways anyways.
That's very important as well. Yeah, that's what you want in the rook endgame. Active rook, always going to be a draw, by the way. I mean, that's why they say all rook endgames are drawn. You know, there's some logic to it, because of if you activate your rook, it will be so annoying. You know, they can't win those games. Like even sometimes sometimes 3 extra pawns. I can show you some end games. They have 3 extra pawn. The other guy's rook is so active, they can't win. So it's all about activation and making them happy. If you do this, then allow rook a3, of course, and now this is becoming more dangerous for us, yeah, to defend this position. Like you have to play rook a5 to stop the pawn, but then the king is coming. It will be a huge task for you to defend. That's a much worse rook than the game continuation. So yeah, also when comes attacking side, of course, you generally want to place your rook behind the pass pawn, just like that.
Yeah.
Chess pattern. They took on b7. Black to play. Black to play. You can get a pawn, or you can do something else. You can also defend the pawn, by the way. You can play rook a8, for example. What should we do?
Rook c8.
Nice. Now you're becoming a much stronger player. So am I. You're becoming a much stronger player. You find the best move. They gave you the open file. That's your worst place piece. You even say no to the pawn, by the way. Tell me, if you take the pawn on a3, what will white play?
Good question. Okay, yeah, they'll probably play rook c1 maybe.
Yes. Followed by which move?
Rook c7 maybe, and then you have the
That's
pigs
2 rooks
on the
7th rank,
7th.
right?
The pigs.
Yeah, the names of just pig, yeah? 2 pigs on the 7th rank is coming.
Yeah, we can't.
And good luck defending this position with black. Good luck, right? Looks terrible.
Yeah.
Like, what's this look doing here? Like, it just does nothing. If you allow this, then the game is already over. So you have to be so careful. Right? Like, we see the relation between extra pawn and activity. I call this quality. If you grab the material, then you give them quality in this position. That's a huge quality when it comes to rook games. Like, that's what they want.
Yeah.
Instead, you say no to material, but you increase the quality of your rook with rook c8, followed by rook c2 or rook c3. You can take it from there. You know, now you have options. Because look at rook on f1, does nothing. And the rook is so happy.
Yeah.
Right? They can win one more pawn. Who cares? You can go in with check. Right? Followed by rook b2 at the very least.
Yeah.
We have these ideas.
Yeah.
Nice, right?
Yeah.
So again, like this move doesn't require calculation. This move is just the hand just plays the move rook c8 without much calculation. And that's the aim. That's the final goal. Once you drill those patterns, this will become much more natural. You'll see these things much more naturally.
So
And you'll want to play those moves.
Is it typical that there's less calculation in rook games, or is that too general of a thing to say?
Not always. They can also become very, very sharp, very, very like
Yeah.
calculation-based positions, for sure, for sure. That's why they are so complex. That's why they are the most complex, like a jungle, yeah, in all end games.
Yeah.
It's so hard to grasp sometimes and understand fully.
Yeah.
So
Which is
that's why
why
they're
they
quite
often
complex.
end in draw.
That's one reason. It's also quite difficult to handle. But that's why, for example, there are so many gigantic books only about rook games. Like even Jacob Aagaard wrote like a big one recently.
Yeah.
Conceptual rook games, like a huge book only about rook games.
Yeah.
Practical rook games, like it's a jungle on its own.
Yeah.
But there are so many typical patterns like this that should be studied first. That should come naturally to us first before we even, show our calculation skills later on.
Yeah.
These things should be, and again, low hanging fruit is this. Like you'll start fixing this first, and then you're ready for larger problems.
I'm actually excited to get into a rook game now.
Yeah, like this was actually one of my students' games, by the way. He was playing with white pieces. The same applies even when you have extra pawn in the rook game. Here, white had one extra pawn, white to play. He saw ideas like this, and he made the move rook f2. What are your observations about the move rook f2, Solveig? Do you think that's a good move or a bad move? Like, try to visualize.
Passive.
Passive, right? He's reacting to the opponent's idea of rook d2, and he's sort of tying down his rook.
It's
a
previous Solveig move.
Previous Solveig would play rook f2. Yes, Solveig just 2 hours ago today. She would definitely play rook f2 and hope for the best, right?
Yes.
Now your mental models are changing. So which move should I play with the rook in this position? That's a rook move.
Rook c1.
Yes, that's one good move. There's one more logical candidate.
Rook e1.
That's it. You found both beautiful moves. Rook e1 and rook c1. They are both great. So for example, rook e1, let's say, can they play rook d2 anyway? Some basic calculation, please.
Rook e7 check.
Yes, followed by you take on b7 and defend, right? Beautiful. Beautiful. So you see, by activating the rook already, you stop the rook d2. Like that's already a great sign.
Yeah,
and if black,
that's right.
If black waits, let's say waits in this position, let's say king f7. What's your next move? This is more difficult, but still, there's one move that you should spend some time and maybe try to make it work.
I was thinking, but I don't know if you're gonna like it. I thought both rook e4 and also f5.
So f5, tell me the drawback of f5. It's basic calculation, please.
It opens opens up for checks.
Alignments, exactly. Opens up for checks, and you invite rook d4 check followed by takes.
But right? Rook e4, do you like
e4
that better?
Definitely is a good move because you're attacking the pawn, right? That's what you want. You're attacking the pawn. And the only issue is that they will play b5 in this position. But here maybe you can find a good move.
You can do...
There's one very logical move here actually.
Rook e5?
That's it. By playing rook e5, by simply attacking a target, you activate your rook and you paralyze them to moves like this, right? Because that's the only way for black to guard the pawn on b5. How else?
Yeah.
There's no other way for black to guard the pawn, which means, the rook is crying on b7, right?
Yes.
You're forced the rook into passivity by simply attacking a target on b5. It's so beautiful. And then you take it from there. You can decide maybe rook c5 to give more scope to your rook. Maybe you can later invade like this, right? Like you can activate further from this position. But you took the initiative. You took the momentum. It's just like Morphy. It's just like Solveig,
yeah.
You activate your pieces. All of them are happy. And you take it from there.
You have a couple of questions in chat. The first question, I think, this is also something I'm wondering about, by the way. Tapio Keking is asking, isn't rook c1 usually better because it's further away from the enemy king example, rook
Yeah,
c7 and then king
discuss those
can't
nuances.
counterattack.
Yeah, we can discuss those nuances. Rook c1 is also logical. Yes, it's a logical move as well. It's not, yeah, it's definitely generally useful to have more distance against your opponent's king. But of course, they will keep their rook on the 7th rank, for example, like this. And I guess you will still sort of have the same idea, yeah? This rook c5 to b5 plan, potentially.
And
Or again, rook
also,
c4, rook c5.
And also, there are several people in chat are asking about rook b4. That is later in the position, I think, after b5.
Rook b4 is also logical. The issue is that they will defend like this. And
Yeah.
your rook is not doing much on b4.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I would rather have the other position than this.
You want the
I would rather
rook
have the other
more.
position.
This is more passive, right?
Yeah, for sure. The rook
Yeah.
is more passive on b4, yeah? More limited in terms of mobility. I would rather attack the pawn like this after b5. I would rather have this position, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. Because
Yeah.
the rook has much more scope over here than this guy.
Yeah.
If they go b4, so why? One final calculation exercise. Do you take on b4 or do you play something else?
Maybe is rook c4 interesting?
Rook c4 is definitely the best move, but you explain to me why.
Because you're attacking a4. If they take, you can just take.
Yes. In fact, rook a5 is even stronger because rook a5, there's no chance for them to defend, right?
Yeah, rook
There's no
a5.
chance for them to defend a4. If they take, you take back and you say thank you so much. You'll gobble up that pawn as well. They can't do anything against that.
Yeah.
If they go b3, nothing changes. You still take on a4. This pawn is harmless. So rook a5, indeed, a very simple move, yeah? Rook a5, and you just take the pawn. If you go rook c4, then at least, right? At least they can guard the pawn like that, potentially. Still, of course, you're better. That rook is terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Rook c4,
Yeah.
yes. Rook c4 is also logical, by the way. It's a very logical move.
Yeah.
Yes. So you see, like,
I
all
have
of our
never.
moves.
I just want to give you a genuine compliment, John,
Yeah.
because I have had several rook endgame lessons, and I've been struggling to be awake in all of them. So with several coaches, so this is the first time someone has got me engaged in rook endgames. This
It's all
this is
because
a
you
huge
didn't
feat.
watch my YouTube video. It's all because you didn't watch my YouTube video. It's called you're misusing your rooks, most likely. I was talking to you. You're probably misusing your rooks. Here is the right way, right?
Yes.
Now you'll watch that after the session. We are giving you full focus, stopping at the key moments, actively engaging with the material. That's great for consolidation. Yeah, that will be your homework. Watching that video, really, really focus, because I compiled all the good things that I'm showing you right now in that video.
But from teacher to teacher, I think you did a really good job here, because you found how to you have noticed what I think is fun, and you found a way to connect it to something I think is boring. So you're making it fun.
Yes, exactly. And this was also, I thought about this today. Like, how do I frame this so also that will be aligned with her style, that something that she actually likes to play.
Yes.
And this is actually beautiful. Yeah, because you want activity, you want energy, you want dynamism with your pieces. And that's perfect.
I'm really impressed by your teaching right now, because I'm actually having fun with rook endgames, and we are on hour 2.5 on top of that. After a work day, and I'm like fully engaged and having fun.
I know. I mean, that's one of the biggest compliments, by the way, for you that is ever given by people as well, like also by you. Really makes me happy. That's one function of a good teacher, right? To make it fun, engaging, and keep the energy level up and motivating.
Rook d6.
Beautiful. Oh my God, you're getting so much better now. This is amazing. Rook d6. Can you believe which move took place in the actual game around
Rook
1500?
c1. That's what
exactly.
That's what Solveig 2 hours ago would play.
Solveig 2 hours ago would play Rook c1, not really suspecting that she committed a chess crime, not seeing the cries and tears on Rook's face, and then then she will lose because Rook c5 is coming, and good luck, everything is hanging, and otherwise even Rook c4 to a4, they can even activate further, and then you play moves like this, just terrible, of course. Yeah, the Rook is crying. Instead, boom, final exit. Rook d6. Well, if they take on c3, the rook is beautiful. It's even coming to the seventh rank. Can you see the function of this pawn, by the way? It's like a fishbone pawn. It's like burying the king. Yeah, just look at the beautiful pawn.
Really nice.
Rook a7 is coming, and the king will be driven away. 3/8 rank as well. It's a beautiful, beautiful position for white.
Why
for sure.
Why not rook b6?
No, you just grab a pawn. Yeah, that's why you took on a6.
No, after. Instead of
okay. If they
a7.
make a random move, I think it's always good to start with this move to drive the king backward first, and then you
Yes.
can always play a move like this. Then you
Yes.
can always play a move like this, yeah, on the next turn, because that king is terrible already.
And what happens after rook c5 then?
Like for example, here in the line that we look at, yes, you can go here. Okay, well, you tell me. Form a plan, please. Oh, they're also attacking the pawn e5. That was your point. Okay, I see.
Maybe just rook g7.
Yeah, that's it. There's a clear target. So I will rather gobble up this pawn, then I will gobble up this guy, and then I will roll my pawn on the h file. Yeah, because black still has no passed pawn. That is dangerous. But I will create a passed pawn very soon over here.
And
this was the best way to play.
Yeah, chat is also writing, I don't play chess that much, but I've actually learned a lot of stuff here. He's a really good teacher.
Thank you so much, chat. Really appreciate it.
And a question, would pawn a4 be just bad there, by the way? Is the question.
Pawn on a4. Which pawn on a4, I wonder you're talking about?
It's probably in the end position.
Okay, let's look at this. Yeah, the pawn on a2 maybe. That's what they are talking about, yeah? Maybe they can quickly attack the pawn. This has to be checked, of course.
Yeah.
I don't see a pawn on a4 right now, but I guess they meant pawn on a2. Yeah, this has to be calculated, of course.
After rook takes a6.
Rook takes a6, okay.
a4.
Maybe white wants to play a4 themselves. Is that the point?
Yeah.
Maybe they played b4 and then maybe some rook a3, I guess. I have no idea what they're talking about, but
no,
yeah,
I think
maybe.
you just play a4. Now here, they're asking.
Maybe. Although I would rather have my rook on the 7th rank first to drive the king back. I mean, if they stop like this, if they stop rook a7 like this, you can play a4, but why not? Why not just simply put pressure on the pawn on b5 like that first? Yeah, why don't we just try to gobble up the pawn? Why do we just trade pawns in this position? Right? Like, pawn trade is also logical, of course, but why don't we just attack the pawn instead?
Okay, wait, they're writing c5 black rook, b6 white rook in that position, a4.
I lost you. Maybe here.
I
don't get how a4 is helping us. I have no idea.
Oh, yeah, here. Black rook on c5. Yeah.
Okay, black rook on c5.
Yes, and white rook on b6.
But it never happens. So I take on a6. You play rook c5.
Yeah.
Because here we played rook a7. We went for this line. Right? It never happened that this was a rook here, and then a4. We never reached this position. I don't know. I have no idea.
Sorry, I'm sorry, chat. I think maybe we're getting
talking about all this, guys, just look at the big picture. What we are training here is whether you can see moves like this and you can choose them quickly over moves like this. Yes. This is the skill that you should get first. This is the lowest hanging fruit, like the rest is the rest is details in some sense. Here, what we are learning here is to see those ideas quickly and play those moves with confidence, trusting our activity for our rook. That's the best way to save bad positions, Like here, maybe white's not down a pawn. Maybe they are down a pawn. I have no idea. But structurally, it's worse for white, right? Clearly. But activity is saving you. Just look at this, Solveig. If all goes normal, white will lose. So they need activity to survive. Just look at the connection, That was my point. All rook games are drawn if you play with an active rook, if you know how to defend those positions. So that's always top priority. Like you will never miss such chances from now on to activate.
Actually, I just noticed because we actually got a message. I chose following this great lessons instead of watching Super GMs in the freestyle tournament. So actually the freestyle tournament is now at the same time.
Oh, I have no idea.
No, me neither. So actually the viewers are prioritizing us. That is a pretty huge compliment.
Well, learning is addictive, right? Like learning, when you learn something new, just like you did today, yeah? It gives you joy and energy and motivation and so on. I think people also see that,
Uh,
that kind of,
Definitely. You know what?
yeah.
I think this is, yeah, we're not done yet, but I think this is probably one of the best lessons I ever had.
Oh, thank you so much, Solveig. That's a big, big compliment to you because you've worked with so many people before. So
Yes.
I take it as a big
Yeah,
compliment.
I mean it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
impressed. Did you have any
Well,
more puzzles?
like and subscribe my channel then. You know what to
Yes,
do.
definitely go follow John on YouTube. Just search up Dr. John's chess clinic,
Yes.
and he posts so many amazing YouTube videos. Often they're really good. They're free. And also the chess cognition podcast you have with the many interesting people
Yeah.
starring, including me. No, I'm joking.
Including you,
But
exactly.
yeah, but
Yes.
the one with Jakob Agor will definitely be fun. But do you have more puzzles?
Yeah, I think that was it basically. This can
No, was
conclude.
that the last puzzle?
Maybe final one. Okay, maybe final one. Okay,
Rook
white to play.
d7.
Yes, and that's exactly why I tricked you. This was such a beautiful conclusion. Oh boy,
Well,
chess is
rook
such a
one,
beautifully
rook
interesting game.
one d7.
Okay,
Yeah.
so first of all, this was a trick puzzle. This was a calculation exercise, which means you
Okay.
will take time before you decide on your move.
Okay.
Rook d7 is beautiful, by the way. That's a beautiful candidate move. Good that you saw it very quickly. But
Okay.
what if I told there's even a stronger move?
Okay. I will actually calculate.
Yes.
Ah, rook h1, threatening ladder mate. Of course.
This is called the Einstellung effect. That's the German word, right? And what it means is this: our existing patterns are making it more difficult for us to find optimal and shorter solutions. Yeah? Because rook
Yes.
d7 looks so tempting that you don't even see the move rook h1, which just forces mate in two in this position.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
literally mate in two. Black cannot stop the mate on h8, right?
Yes.
So this is a beautiful conclusion because yes, we should get better to see those beautiful patterns quickly, but we should not blindly also play. Yeah, we should also
Yes.
take a step back
Good
and ask
lesson.
ourselves.
Good
Yeah.
lesson.
So this was a good puzzle.
Oh my
Fun, funny
god, I had
German word.
so much fun with this. Like when you said, "Oh, I prepared so many rook endgame puzzles," I was just thinking, "Oh no, this is gonna be so
Oh
boring."
no, it'll be a boring session. But I'm such a good teacher, so that I can even make the boring rook hand games fun for you. Like I can just continue.
Yeah, I'm blown away. But I'm really happy. I'm really thankful to my opponent that we got
Yeah,
that game together.
for sure.
There was
That was
so
a
many
beautiful one.
lessons in that game.
It's like lottery, right? Every single week you play some games and we get different lessons. Like that also makes it fun. Like you get certain positions and I get ideas and I present them to you. Like that's also why it's very good to play some games because you force yourself, yeah, actively. You engage in those positions yourself, which gives you some ideas of what the holes are in your chest right now that you're fixing.
Yeah, I should probably summarize as well. The first
Yes,
game, that was the Sicilian, not that was the Alpine, the first one.
first one is
Ah,
Alapin, yes.
yeah, that was the ugly bishop on d6,
Oh yeah.
and also pawn takes e4.
Okay, C4.
Yeah,
Yes, you say good no to the pawn for a long time. Yeah.
yeah, and then bishop e6, yeah, was an eyesore.
I saw bishop d6 for sure. Yeah.
Those were probably the main takeaways from,
Main takeaways for
yeah,
sure. Main
yeah.
takeaways for sure were there. The
And
rest
also
is
that
sort of,
one,
it's already done for me.
pawn takes f2. That the
Pawn takes f2 was the final
castle
point.
was
Yes.
actually not a threat because of the fork on
Because
e2.
of the pawn fork.
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
Nice. Nice. Second game.
So yeah, and this was the Smith Mora and I know now in this e6 structure is good, and
Yes.
also don't be lazy with the calculation. Actually, take the time to do it,
Yes.
and if I don't find anything, it's still good calculation training. And
That's it.
also just keep it simple. Just play bishop e7 on castle instead of doing all those weird
Simple
things.
chess. No fancy business. Yeah. You already
Yeah,
got 2 pawns. Just
yeah.
focus on what's lacking in your position. Yeah.
Yeah, and keep it
Exactly.
simple was common for more. And then
Yes.
In the
Yes.
next game, it was, we spent a lot of time on that. I did summarize it, but the G3 structure
Yes.
I learned about,
For
and
sure. For
it
sure.
was,
Hmm.
what more was it? It was the rook a5 move.
Rook a5 was a deep pattern that you
King
learned today.
g1
Yes.
I learned is
King d1. Yeah.
awful.
Yeah. King
And
g1 was bad. Yes. Here rook
yeah,
a5 was good.
yeah.
You also learned this positional pattern, which is a little bit advanced, but still
Yes,
interesting.
yes.
And yes,
And
like
then
how
in
to
the
handle
in the
rook
rook
and yes,
game, basically just be more active.
for sure, for sure. Make your rooks happy,
Learned a
and
lot.
they will make you happy. I think it was Morpheus who said this, yeah? Like, make your pieces happy so they can make you happy. I mean, they attribute to Morpheus that phrase, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, even in rook game, you make your rooks happy, and they make you happy in the end.
Make your
That was good.
rookies happy, says chat.
Make your rookies happy. Yeah,
Mm.
rookie redhead gets happy in the end. Yeah, so you
Yeah.
can make some acronyms like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
You'd
yeah,
like that.
this was so valuable. Yeah, just
Same here.
rook d1, not rook
Same here.
c1.
Yes, from now on, you will not even look at those moves. And that's also a great time saver because, let's say lower rated players spend more time in irrelevant moves like this. So grandmasters discard them instantly, by the way. Yeah, so that's
So
also, it's really a huge effect.
if I
Yeah,
get into a rookie game before the next lesson, I'm just gonna be
please.
super active. Okay, you'll probably get a game where my rooks are very happy, but I'm just sacrificing all my pawns and then I'm losing.
That's good. That's like overcompensation. That's good.
Yeah,
Sometimes you will try those overcompensations. That's totally fine.
yeah,
That's totally fine for the moment.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
But
I'm
definitely something has changed in your style.
never
In
in
your
my
business.
whole life have I been wishing for a rook endgame.
Yes. Now you're so much looking forward to getting a rook game, right? You almost like ask me to, yes, send me some rook game positions so I can play against Stockfish or my training partners. Yeah, maybe we can even do that. Like, if you don't
Yeah.
get one, I can even, give you some couple. You can try against some engines
Or
like Maya.
I can trade a winning position into a suspicious rook endgame just to get practice.
Exactly. Yeah. That's also what Ramesh does, by the way. Yeah. When the Indian coach, when they, let's say, work on a certain concept, let's say end games, they actively trade the queens and they play end games in their next games. Yeah. Like he asks the students to actively go for those positions that they train for. So yeah, this week definitely try to play as many rook end games as possible. Like actively go for those and see how we handle them and we analyze it.
Yeah.
You look at the effect.
Okay, I think
Yeah.
this is a good place to conclude the lesson.
Yeah. Almost 3 hours.
I'm gonna ask my moderator to put up a raid for me, and then I just wanna thank you so much, John. This was really
Always
a lot
pleasure.
of fun, and
Yeah.
until next time, I'm gonna
Until next week.
work more on your chessable course, of course.
Yes. Yes.
And play some longer time controls. I'll try get at least one classical and then some rapid games. Does that sound good?
That sounds perfect. So you put there practice, you give effort every single day, and this is beautiful. It's a beautiful cycle. Improvement cycle starts here. Looking forward to our next week already, and we keep in touch. You can always write to me, and we take action accordingly. But I think you're definitely on the right track when it comes to this. Yeah, great feedback also. I enjoy a lot our sessions as well because of your feedback, because of your summaries, because of your instant reactions, and I get joy as well as a teacher when a student gives me such feedback, and I feel like they're learning something. It's such a big joy also for me, honestly. So I'm enjoying this. It gives me energy as well, so to do this. That's why we never end. Just 3 hours and we can still go on.
Yeah.
But I really like it. So thank you for
Yeah.
doing this with me.
That's amazing. Yeah. And chat, hopefully I'll see you next Tuesday, same time, right? 6 p.m.
Yes.
If that
Same
works.
time.
Yeah. And say hi to Jesse February from us, and have fun watching freestyle, I guess, is what's going on right now. So
it's so boring after this, guys. It will be so boring, but yeah, you're free.
We'll see you next week. Okay, bye
Bye. Next week. Ciao.
Okay.